for the YouTube viewers, because we are streaming live on YouTube as usual at State of Deception. This is the YouTube, guys. So if you watch us on YouTube, you'll see a whole different view. You'll see that you can see the setup, and it's pretty cool. Like, you can also communicate with us on the YouTube chat, and there's a couple people that religiously watch the YouTube. About 6 people we got religiously watching, which is really good considering we just started and we're building up the live. What's up, King? What's up, Charlie? How long am I live for? I'll be live for quite a while. Yes, on YouTube they can see your comments, so all the comments are available on YouTube. This stream is live on YouTube, and the streams are also available on YouTube after the live is done, plus the reaction video. So I've been doing reaction videos as well. And then they're also available on YouTube. So what I'm going to do today, I've said this for 3 days in a row. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to release the reaction videos one by one on the channel. Hedy says they got a lot to say. Charlie says he agrees. Jake B says privatize is to foreigners. I don't know what that means. Oh, you mean like other foreign interests are going to come and then they're going to take advantage of the fact that the NHS is privatized? Is that what you mean? Seb Brennan says, what does NHS privatisation look like for you? Well, for me, it looks like having certain elements of the NHS funded by the private sector so that it's no longer 100% subsidised. It looks like auditing the NHS and revoking some of the areas that money is spent in the NHS. It looks like a greater investment in medical technology and less reliance on NHS consultants. It looks like a tech revolution that could be funded by private investment. Yeah, that's how I feel. So I'd love people to come and debate. Charlie says he's going to come back around 9. Cool, we got 12 people in the live. We're just warming up right now. I noticed when I put the red light on, more people stay in the live. Should I put the red light on? Let me put the red light on. Hold on. Oh, red light. The red light is on. Oh, it's amazing. Oh my gosh, the red light. This is the magic red light that gets me more people viewing. We are getting there with the algorithm. I know what the algorithm's like. It takes a while, and then after you've been talking for a while, it boosts you up. Moore says privatisation hasn't really worked across various sectors in the UK, though. You mean like the trains? Because that's the example everyone always gives. And the trains have been heavily subsidised. Even when they were so-called privatised, it was like 50-60% subsidised. And that is also just one example. Generally speaking, most things in the world are in the private sector. But then obviously the governments of the world come along and then they introduce they stick their nose into it. And then it's not that it necessarily becomes worse. It just morphs immediately into something different. Something that's much harder to get back into the grips of the public sector. So that's why we're in the crisis that we are in the NHS now, is because it's 100% subsidized and now everybody's relying on it. So when everyone's relying on something, you can't get rid of it. What's up? Yup, that's me. Matthias is here. Moore's buses, trains, water, energy, none of which I can think of has worked. So maybe you can come on and talk to me more about when the buses, trains, water and energy were privatized. And if that's the case, are you saying that if privatization doesn't work, are you saying that everything should be in the control of the government? And if so, are you essentially a communist? I'm not saying you are. I'm just asking you. If you think that that privatization doesn't work, do you think that the government should control everything? Hope Joanna says, I've worked in both. Both systems are deeply flawed. I agree. No, because privatization involves rich people trying to gain profits. And that's the problem, is that so does the public sector. It's just done in a more insidious way. And it's less in my opinion, I think the public sector is less accountable than the private sector. They saw you like they said night night. Okay, my kid said night night to me. Okay, would privatising the NHS not take away life-saving healthcare from the poor? Well, I'm not life-saving. I'm not saying that it should be fully privatised. I just think it should be privatised to a greater extent. I believe in a mixed healthcare system, meaning part privatised, part subsidised. And the US system is also not a completely private system. It's also a mixed healthcare system, as is Germany, as is Ireland. In fact, we can get a list up. Should we get a list up of all countries by healthcare system? Because people seem to think that the USA is the example of healthcare when it goes wrong, but in actuality, it's not even fully privatized. The USA's healthcare system is more socialized than most countries. So let's get like the financing countries by financing systems. So let's just sort it by social or single payer insurance. So we've got social insurance in Slovenia, France, Albania. Most of these countries are single payer. So we've got 42 countries that are single payer, including the UK. And then we've got Germany, Peru, Mexico, Algeria, just to name some countries that have a public-private. So that's essentially mixed. And then we've got public insurance system is similar to a single payer, but somewhat different, but it's public insurance system. Then we've got private health insurance system, Netherlands, Liechtenstein, Israel, Switzerland. Incidentally, these are some of the best systems in the world when you're talking about Israel, Netherlands, Liechtenstein, and their private insurance system. Then we go all the way to the United States, which is mixed, non-universal. So if we look at the countries by coverage, USA's coverage is about 92%. So it's about, if you're looking at all the countries in the world, that's in the upper range when it comes to people being covered. You know, that's in the top third, the upper third. Well, let's say the upper half. It's in the upper half for coverage compared to other countries. So I don't know why it seems to be like the poster boy for private healthcare, private health insurance, because it's not. It seems like it's actually more public than private in a sense. Not that it's more public than private, but it's more public than other countries that would be considered private. Thank you for the heart, me. It's a supply side policy. So here's the thing that confuses me. First of all, that question, why is the USA like the poster boy for private healthcare? And the second thing is, why is the USA considered the poster boy for bad healthcare when most other countries in the world have far worse healthcare than the USA? It seems weird. Is it because people have been propagandized to see it a certain way? Payment for students, I don't know what you mean by that. It's literally half of many people annual pay. Nobody's paying half of their annual pay for healthcare. That's. I mean, there's probably like 20 people in the whole country that are paying half of their salary on healthcare. Melanistic Marble on YouTube says the NHS is already privatized. NHS Trust, GP practice, primary care, diagnostic and screening services. The list goes on. So I looked this up actually. The NHS trusts are not actually private. They are public trusts. I thought they were privatized, but they're actually public trusts. The problem is that they get away with acting like a private entity when really they should actually be being held accountable to a much greater extent. So they are actually a public trust. Now there are private trusts that operate in tandem with the NHS, but the trust, the caregiving, so to speak, trusts themselves are actually public trusts, and they're just not held accountable in the same way that many things in the private sector are not addressed in order to protect profits. Likewise, the public trusts are not treated as though they're actually a public trust because they're run by people who have their own interests at heart, and NHS, Nothing Special says, NHS unalive my dad, murderers. Yeah, they unalive my daughter as well. So join the club that no one wants to be part of, the club of people that the NHS has killed. And it seems like the club is growing ever greater in members. Real Tech says, how much do you think the NHS? How much of the NHS do you think the government subsidised? It's 100%. It's a single payer system, which means 100% of it is subsidised. Shamel says, I don't trust you. I couldn't give a toss, mate. I couldn't. Literally, I couldn't care less. Heidi says, my son bringing up blood in and out of hospital 2 years. I'm sorry to hear that. By the way, it's funny because people think that because the NHS killed my daughter and because I'm trying to get justice, that this means I'm some kind of like nice guy who is just going to bend over when you get rude to me. Like, I don't understand why people think that. Like, I'm not a pushover. So when people try and get rude to me, I'm just going to tell you to go do one. Like, I'm not going to get rude because I'm on live. But it's funny that people think they can chat. Like, I'm just like, bro, do you think that because my daughter got killed that I'm going to let you disrespect me? Like, what the hell? And it's so funny, there's so many of you guys who have like messaged me like with your stories and stuff of like how you've been harmed by the NHS. And then when I can't respond in time, you start cussing me out. I'm like, do you think that I care? Like, I'm trying to help you, not because of you, but because I'm trying to do the right thing. But I don't care I don't care what you think about me. Like, I care about my daughter and getting justice for my daughter. I care about building a platform. I don't care about, Anyway, Miss Daisy says, why do you think private care would have treated your daughter differently? I think in a private system, it's more difficult for them to use the power of the state against you, which is what happened to us. I also think that you have more choice because you can just choose to go somewhere else. Whereas in the NHS, you basically have no choice. Once you're in the little grubby little mitts, like you don't really have any other choice. Now you can go private if you want, but there's a transition process and it's an inefficient transition process from going from public to private, and there's GDPR implications and stuff. It's not streamlined. Real Tech says private healthcare does exist though. Yes, but and also if you go private in the NHS. If you go private in the UK, you still have to pay the tax contribution towards the NHS. So let me ask you guys this. How would people feel about the idea that if you go private, so if you choose to have private healthcare, you no longer have to pay the tax contribution towards the NHS? How do people think about that? Because if you've got a problem with that, then that means you basically want to force everyone to be part of the NHS system, even if they don't want to be. Jenny, I kind of just addressed that. You said you can pay to go private within. Pay to go private within the NHS. I'd like to hear you break that down a little bit. SHSK says, please educate yourself. Oh, I noticed. So here's the two new tactics that I've noticed. Usually used by dumb people and usually used by like really extreme left-wing people. First is that they pretend that you're talking over them, even though they're not making a logical point. One, and then two, they'll just say you're not educated. But they won't actually say what their argument is because they're scared of their argument being criticized and challenged. They'll just say, you need to educate yourself. So that's typically, for me, that's a hallmark of someone that their argument can't compete in the marketplace of ideas. And so they go for the low-hanging fruit of ad hominem or, SHSK, would you like to come and debate? I guarantee, come on, let's debate then. And let's hear what you got to say. Come on now. I want the smoke. Come on, request to join up. I don't know, I can't see you in the list of people. It'd be great if you could request to join up. Cloudwater says free healthcare is not reliable. I agree. Wouldn't it be better to fund the NHS sufficiently so that more people on this wide scale can get help? The NHS has received record funding almost every year for the past 40 years. Do you understand that the NHS was privatised before and it made it a lot worse? Well, we're experiencing pretty much the worst crisis currently in the NHS that there's ever been in history. So obviously there's COVID, then there's the longest waiting list in history. So I don't know why you guys don't realise this. The only thing I can think is that because it's a social taboo, nobody's talking about it. Nothing Special says the clinicians are murderers, stick together. They have a whole system inside these hospitals. Of course they do. Yeah, they killed my daughter. They covered it up, and they wield the power of the state, and they use it to cover up negligence. It's called cover-up culture, and it's being addressed. In fact, it's been addressed in a lot of. Let me try and see if I can invite you. It's been addressed in Parliament. I've personally spoken to the Health Secretary about it. And it is a crisis. It's a massive crisis. Heidi says, covered up my brother's death. NHS, Nothing Special said, they are Satanists. My dad's is evil. The GP, ambulance and ED did not give my dad oxygen. Nothing Special, I've heard this story so many times. I'm sorry to hear that this is happening, but I can tell you that this is not the first time I've heard it. Yes, we do have an email. The email address is elephantintheroom. Sorry, one sec. The email address is elephantintheroom.cio@gmail.com. elephantintheroom.cio@gmail.com is my email address. So you can send me an email. There's also a link in bio if you want to speak to me in any other way. There's forms you can fill in and stuff to tell me your story. The Black Templar says there ain't no conspiracy here. Exactly. The only conspiracy is the real conspiracy that they conspire to take people's lives and cover up negligence, and that they're a criminal mafia. Aspiring to Inspire says, I couldn't agree more. I incurred a spinal injury in 22, still waiting for surgery. So this person's been on a waiting list for surgery for, how many years is it? 3 years. 3 years waiting for surgery. 3 years waiting for surgery. Did you guys know that you are 13 to 24 times more likely to die waiting for healthcare in the UK than you are in the USA? 13 to 24 times more likely. I've got the numbers as well. Please email me, feel free. It's very difficult to get in touch with everyone, but I do try to keep an open door policy, even though, there's nothing really special about me, but that's just how they describe it, the open door policy. Okay. Someone's requesting to join. Let's see. I'm hoping that I can hear you in the earphones, so please, we might have to do some audio tests. Hello?
Hello.
Hold up. Are you speaking now?
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now. Perfect.
Okay. So my point was I am definitely not a big advocate for what the NHS is currently going through. Like I've had multiple experiences with the NHS where it really pisses me off. But the idea of a privatized NHS is completely going against working class people that couldn't afford a system where their health is like at a cost.
Can I ask you a question? When you say working class, are you describing people under a certain income level, or are you describing people of a certain socio-economic class?
I'm talking about like the amount of money that they have.
Okay, based on their income level. Okay, go on.
But yeah, not income, just like money.
Okay, just the money. You mean like their net worth, like their assets minus their liabilities, like, or are you talking about their income, like
Yeah.
the amount of money that they make? I'm assuming you're talking about their
I mean, I
wages,
don't
like.
think this is the main issue, but just the amount of money they can afford to spend on this kind of thing.
Right, got it, got it. So, what about if there was still a way for people who couldn't afford healthcare to access healthcare, subsidized healthcare, but there was other mechanisms of generating funds other than it being 100% subsidized by taxpayer money? How would you feel about that?
I feel like that isn't the point though, because the idea of a privatized system where you are like
Stay with me, because that's
you
what you said. You said about it being about the wages. So I'm saying, what if people who can't afford it still get so-called free healthcare, but then there's other mechanisms of generating funding, such as the people that can afford it are able to have to pay, or it's subsidized by employers. Like, what if there were other ways of generating funding
okay,
from the
but that's
NHS?
not ever going to be a system that's happening. If
Why would that
the
not be a
people that
system?
can't truly afford healthcare and it's a privatized system, especially under Nigel Farage, that's not going to be the
I
case.
feel like you're not
It's
listening.
going to be the case where it's the same for everyone,
I feel like you're not listening,
where
because
you're going to
we're
have to be
talking.
put into debt.
I'm creating a hypothetical scenario for you whereby you still have subsidized healthcare if you can't
Yeah.
afford it, but if you can afford it, you pay. Similar to how, like, you can get, housing benefit and other forms of support from the government, right? If you
Okay.
can't afford
But
it,
but
but if you
realistically
can
that would
afford it,
never
you're not
be the
eligible.
case.
Why would that never be a
That
case?
realistically would never be the
Why
case.
not?
Like Um, because under a system where the NHS is privatised, people would be going into debt. It's not the same case as benefits for poor people. That is a completely different system where people would be yeah, sure, they would be getting the healthcare, but they would still be in debt. That's not the case.
No, 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 no. The reason why I brought up the benefit system is because that's an income assessed system where you only are eligible for the government support if your income is below a certain threshold. And if you are not below that threshold, then the government doesn't give you the
Yes,
support. Likewise, I'm saying, what about a system where if you are
but
below a
those
certain, hold on,
the
hold on. Likewise, I'm saying, what if there's a system where if you are below a certain income
okay.
threshold, you get access to subsidized healthcare, but if you are not below that income threshold, you pay an insurance premium such that you can, get private healthcare, and then there can be more investment and funding into the healthcare system.
Okay, sure, if that was the system,
Yeah.
like, I'm
Do you
not
have a problem with a system like
arguing
that?
against that, but if you were to. No, that's a completely different issue. But if the NHS were to become privatised, that is not what would be happening.
And do you think that
The
Do you
issue
think
would
that
be.
America's system is privatized?
Yes,
That's how America's system worked. So what? That's how it works. So why
right?
why would that not be how the UK system works if it became more privatized?
That's not true at all.
Yes, it is. You obviously
Um,
don't know what you're talking
the
about.
American
So
system,
if you don't know what
talk
you're
to
talking
any
about,
working
if you
class
don't know what you're
person
talking
in
about,
the.
there's no point having a debate, because that's the fundamental premise of your argument, is that there's a system that works and a system that doesn't work. You don't even know how the system works. So what's the point in having an argument about it?
That's not true. I don't think. I don't think the system here works. I don't think the system in America works.
But that's how what I've just explained to you is how the system works in America, and you believe that that's a privatized healthcare system. Therefore, what if that's how it worked here? You would also believe that would be a privatized healthcare system. In other words, what I've described is how privatization would effectively work in the UK, based on what I'm advocating for.
I just personally, I don't understand why you would want to go backwards into that point of view.
How is it going backwards?
It's going backwards because it's a wealth-based system. It's going against the idea that people are allowed healthcare no matter what. It's just
so
I really don't get it.
In that system, you would get healthcare no matter what as well. And we always...
It's not true though.
Of course,
like
it is.
You look at certain accounts from America, and it's like this. Not even just America, just like places where they've got a privatized system, and it's not equal. And I'm
Is it
not saying it's great here either. I'm just saying it is actively going backwards. Especially like I really don't want to bring race into it, but
of course you have to because of your brainwashing. But go on.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, there has been specific studies done on the NHS about race inequality and who is getting, like, appointments. And that is even more emphasised when you're in a system that is going against, like, people that have a lot of money. And I know that sounds stupid.
Because you believe that because certain people with a certain racial background are less likely to be able to afford it, you think that would disparage them because they would...
Yes.
Okay.
Genuinely, I do believe that.
Okay, but
I think
those
reform
people...
is pushing this idea that people from other backgrounds are...
Those people... As I've already stated multiple times, those people would get free healthcare. I'm talking...
What?
See, this is the problem. You're debating about something that you don't really have a good... Like, most of your opinions are quite half-baked. Like, you don't really have a good understanding of how the system works. Like, no offense. But basically... I'm not saying that we should have a system where people who can't afford healthcare or people who have serious health issues shouldn't get it. I believe that there should be subsidized healthcare for people with chronic health
What I'm trying to say, right?
But I still think there should be other private funding sources, like paying if you're late for an appointment, paying for certain things that are not a matter of life or death or a matter of chronic illness, health insurance premiums if you so wish, and the ability to opt out of paying for the NHS. I think that there should be other options like that.
Right. What I'm saying, I'm not the best at speaking. Like I've probably misspoken a lot. What I'm saying is the idea that someone will be less in will be less inclined to be able to have the certain healthcare system is a race issue in the UK.
Sorry, I didn't understand what you just said.
Because of the privatised NHS, that's going to make the issue even worse.
How would it make that issue worse?
The way of dealing with right-wing politics...
I'm not talking about right-wing politics or reform.
Well, the only party right now that wants to have a privatised NHS is the Reform Party.
No, they don't.
Which is... Yes, they do.
No, they don't. And I'm not talking about reform, so I don't know why you're bringing them up. It's just a red herring.
That is the only party that is advocating for a privatised NHS,
okay,
and that is the only party...
I'm not talking about them.
So what exactly do you want to happen?
I already explained it.
So you want a Tory government that is privatised NHS?
Why do you keep inserting random ideas into the things that I'm saying, like Tory?
No, because the idea of a privatised NHS is a right-wing point of view.
In the UK?
Well, yes.
So why wasn't didn't the Tories, after how long were the Tories in for? Was in like 14 years or something, or like I can't remember how long they were in for. Ages though. Why didn't they privatise the NHS then?
Because they're not right wing enough that that's going to be
Okay,
for them to get in for the next
even though your
election.
point is a red herring, I still humoured it, and it's been undermined by the fact that you're trying to associate privatising the NHS with the Tory government, but the Tory government didn't privatise the NHS anyway, so it doesn't even matter.
No.
Why even bring them up?
I'm saying it's a right wing point of view.
Okay, but what's your counter to the point of view, whether it's right wing or not? Because all you've said is that it would be racist, and I said, well, even if you're saying, okay, people who are of lower socioeconomic status are going to be disparaged,
that was like,
it's still the case that they would have subsidised healthcare, so they wouldn't be disparaged.
To be fair, that wasn't the greatest point. I don't really know.
In fact, the most people that would be disparaged in that system would be the people that, or you could say disparaged or not, the people that would end up paying for it are the people with higher means. So that would be less likely to be people of lower socioeconomic class.
Yeah. I'm just saying, from my point of view, majority of people couldn't afford the prices that the NHS could for a privatised NHS. And
okay, I've already addressed that point, but thanks for speaking. We've got a lot of people waiting to come on. I feel like I've been going round and round in circles speaking to you, but I appreciate you joining the live. What's up, Hedy? Hedy? What kind of name is Hedy?
It's Heidi.
Oh. I'm just joking. Go on then.
I'm not going to debate with you about going private. Sorry, that's my son. He has took us all into another room. It's more the fact that it's dangerous waiting on the NHS list.
Yeah.
When you've got chronic illnesses, that would be my main concern.
Basically, yeah, because hundreds of thousands of people, approximately, I think in 2023 or 2022, I think approximately 340,000 people died waiting for healthcare in the United Kingdom. Something like that, anyway.
Yeah. Well, my son is in and out of hospital. Reflux, he brings up blood, and he brought up 7 kidney dishes of blood clots about 3 weeks ago and was discharged to come back in for another 2 procedures on the 12th of June and to be looked after at home. My twin brother, he actually went up to the hospital in 2017 and he was a dental technician and actually said that he had a blood clot at the back, on the back of his leg. And they did the blood test, said, no, you don't, go home. But you could actually see it. And he went back up again and he says, I had a blood clot. Just sent him home and obviously he passed away. Because it's sudden death, there's obviously a inquiry. And at the inquiry, I said, what happens with the hospital? Because he was there twice and they've missed it. And the exact words to me was that the hospital will turn around and say that he took the blood clot when he left.
So are you saying that they lied?
They're saying that we were full of grief, but they were saying if we tried to tackle the hospital legally, their argument would be that Richard could have took the blood clot or did take the blood clot once he left the hospital doors.
So they pretended that the blood clot had nothing to do with them?
Yeah. But he had been there twice with it. So it could have been fixed. It could have been prevented.
And
34-year-old man, like.
What was the outcome? You said, did he pass away?
Yeah.
Wow.
He dropped down. He dropped down and passed away in front of my mum.
So are you taking legal action?
No, it was 8 years ago, 2017, and we were full of grief at the time.
Yeah.
And at the inquiry, about 6 months later, I raised the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I asked, where does the hospital stand on this? And he basically said to me it was a losing battle, that the hospital would just say that he could have took it when he got into a taxi or drove home.
Yeah, and they'll get all their medical experts anyway to back up their lies. So it'll be very difficult for you to take. It would have been difficult for you to take action. I'm really sorry about the loss of your husband. It seems like everybody nowadays knows someone.
No, my brother. Sorry, my brother.
Oh,
The
did you
twin
say
brother.
your brother? Sorry. I
Yeah.
spoke to a lot of people now. I apologize. You said your brother. So you said it's been 7 years.
Well, it was 2017.
7-8 years. Okay.
So they can't even blame it on the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know. And then my wee son's 10, and he has like acid reflux, which is burning his insides because it's been going on for years, and it actually causes him to bleed and bring up blood, and they just keep sending him home. The exact words were, well, he's not bleeding enough where he's going to bleed out, so you can take him home and we'll bring him back in for procedures. And this will be the third time round.
Yeah. And
then
technically, these issues would exist as well I suppose they could exist in a privatized healthcare system where, in terms of the cover up of negligence and stuff like that. So, what do you think about the prompt? Like, what do you think about the idea that the NHS, it might be time to move on from the kind of system that we have for healthcare in the UK?
they're definitely going to have to do something. Definitely. I don't know how it would work out, you know, depending on your status. I mean, I paid a one-off fee to go and see about rheumatoid arthritis, and it turned out that I had lupus and various other things. But I mean, I had to save that up because I actually inquired about going private for me and my son. But because we've got outstanding issues, like I have epilepsy and stuff, most of the insurance companies won't touch us.
Yeah. That's another issue as well with private insurance. So you're basically stuck dealing with the NHS.
Well, one of them actually said to me on the phone, you should have looked into this 10 years ago. Why didn't you sort it out 10 years ago? And I said,
sort what out?
Going private. I had phoned one of the main private healthcare companies, and that was the response I got.
What, implying that who in their right mind?
Implying that, you know, you've got these outstanding issues. Why are you only looking for private healthcare now?
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But these outstanding health conditions only came about in the last maybe 5 years. You don't know you're going to get sick, do you?
Yeah.
And then the NHS 10, 15 years ago, it wasn't in the state that it's in now.
Yeah, but the state that it's in is inevitable, really. Like, when you have a lot of people coming into the country, a lot of strain on the system and aging population, it's inevitable. I just think people don't want to accept that there's no magic bullet solution where you can just say, oh, it's all going to be hunky-dory and everybody's going to get free healthcare and we're going to ride off into the sunset. No, eventually the chickens are going to come home to roost. I'm going to drop you down, Heidi. Thank you for your perspective. We've got a lot of people waiting to join. I apologise for you.
No problem.
Take care of yourself, though, yeah.
Good night.
Good night. Okay, so Hawk, hold on one sec. So Booksmart is raising a good point about what I was saying about the NHS waiting list numbers and how many people die on the waiting list. So I think it was the Labour Party and also I think it was the Telegraph. It was two press departments contacted approximately a third of the NHS trusts in the country, and then they multiplied by the number of trusts missing to get a number of people who essentially died on NHS waiting lists. Now, that number obviously is not going to mean that every single person that died could have been saved. Of course not. And most people that are old, it will be difficult for them to be saved. But the point is, we can't really know that because they're dead now and they were waiting for treatment. And perhaps if they had got their treatment, they would have survived. It would be interesting maybe to see, for example, the number of people under a certain age. I mean, you could just do some interpolation. Anyone who's knows about maths and whatnot knows what I'm talking about. You could just do interpolation using is age distributed normally Is it a normal distribution? You just do interpolation at a certain age, and you can see the proportion of those people out of that 300 and something thousand people that die on the NHS waiting list that are under a certain age, let's say under 50, and then you could infer that maybe that they would have had a longer life expectancy if they're dying at 50. I still think it will be tens of thousands of people. Rob said your maths is massively off. My maths is not off. It's not difficult maths what I'm talking about. As I've said, the numbers are just what the trust self-report of people died on NHS waiting list. I accepted that of those people, many of them would have already been likely to die. So I'm suggesting that people under a certain age would be less likely to die, and you could use that to estimate people that died prematurely waiting healthcare. It's always going to be an estimate. My maths is perfect, but it's always going to be an estimate. You're never going to be able to get the exact number of people that could have been or would have been saved. And Rob, I'm not bringing you up because if you think my maths is wrong, then you clearly don't know what you're talking about. Hawk says anyone who chooses to agree with privatisation of the NHS is a traitor and a class traitor. Interesting. Okay. I don't know how that works. People think we're more affluent than we are. Ego says, Rob says no real world statistics need to come in. Okay. Inflation last 3 years was basically 20% week. I don't know. There's a typo there. I'm a bit unsure what you mean by that. Frankie said, who are you voting for? I'm not going to vote. Rob said, I'm worried that I can't win a debate. Let's get someone else up and then we'll bring Rob up afterwards. I'm from the US. You may want to ask some questions. We may be in a sec. What's up, Mai?
Yes, brother. How are you, man?
Yeah, I'm good, man.
Okay. So to be honest, I understand. I agree with you that the NHS model of healthcare needs to change, but I don't believe privatisation is the way to do it, my man.
When you say privatisation, like what do you see as privatisation? Like, do you see a system that is more funded through private investment inherently, like let's say 1% more than it is now? Do you see that as privatisation, or is there a point at which you're saying no, this is privatisation and this isn't privatisation?
I would say privatisation becomes where the NHS is no longer free at the point of use.
Okay, but I mean, the American system is free at the point of use. So would you say
the American system is not free at the point of use?
Yes, it is.
It's not.
It is.
It's only free at the point of use if it's life-saving treatment.
It's free at the point of use for majority of the things that the NHS is free at.
No. It's only free at the point of use for life-saving treatment.
You're
so if
wrong.
you go to, but I'm talking about like other things which aren't life-saving. It's like family care appointments. It's not.
It is. You pay afterwards, so it is free at the point of care. It's actually illegal to deny.
That's not what free at the point of use means.
What does it mean? Tell us.
Free at the point of use, the definition that I'm using is that you do not pay for healthcare after using it.
You do not. So you're saying free at the point of use means that you don't pay afterwards?
Yeah. So there's
So
do not get
why did you add at the point of use?
That's just the term.
You've used the term wrong.
I have not used the term.
Okay,
wrong.
what does at the point of use mean?
My guy, if you've used healthcare, you do not pay for it. That is
What does at the point of use mean?
When you're using the healthcare.
So, okay, so hold on a sec. Let's get the. So, are you saying that if you have to pay for an appointment after you have the appointment, that is not free at the point of use?
I'm saying if you have to pay for your appointment, it's not free at the point of use.
Yeah, I know that it's not free, but you said it's not free at the point of use.
Exactly, because
why are you adding the phrase at the point of use then?
Because if you didn't have to use healthcare at all, obviously you wouldn't have to pay for it.
Yeah, so it's free at the point of use. It's not like they deny you until you pay, like in India or something. It's free at the point of use, and then you pay subsequent to
that. So then what happens after you haven't paid that bill? What then happens?
It might just affect your credit rating, or nothing really happens.
Or a private company that hospital can refuse to treat you again.
But you still have access to other hospitals. Okay,
but what if you're in a rural area where the next hospital from you is like 4 or 5 hours away?
That area will still have usually nearby to where the private hospital is.
Yeah, usually, but I'm talking about you can't.
There's federal hospitals and then there's state hospitals as well.
Okay. If we're talking about the United Kingdom,
yeah,
where a majority of the elderly population live in rural areas,
Okay.
Where even now in an NHS system, the nearest centres for treatments are like 3-4 hours away.
Yeah.
So those people.
Wait, who has a nearest centre of treatment that's 3-4 hours away? Can you name like an
So
area?
for example, for like anyone in East Wales, your nearest, like if you're just past the border of Shropshire, your nearest major trauma centre is probably Stoke, which is 2.5-3 hours away. From people living around Oswestry, if you have a heart attack, your nearest PCI centre is Stoke as well, which is about 3-4 hours away.
Okay.
So those people who would then, after Stoke, you're probably looking at Birmingham, which is another hour, or Manchester for another hour. So if Stoke refused to treat you because you have previous bad debts, you're then. So what are you going to do with that group of population?
So if you need emergency care, they can't refuse to treat you.
No, but you can't then dictate what a private company can and can't do.
Yes, you can, because it's illegal.
No, you can't. What do you mean?
You keep saying things that are not true. It's illegal.
How?
It's illegal in the USA for them to refuse to treat you if you need healthcare.
No, it's not illegal.
Okay.
Because they
look it
refuse to
up
treat.
and then come
No,
back and then you can debate.
Okay.
All right. Let's get Rob on. Hello, mate. We're waiting for you to connect.
You right, pal?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so I want to put in perspective for you that other times things have been privatised in this country and haven't worked. And we've had a government regulation to bail these companies out. So take the REM, for example. Do you know about the Office of Rail and Road?
No, about what, sorry?
About the Office of Rail and Road.
Office of Rail and Road. No, I don't know about that.
Okay, so within the government, this particular sector of the government oversees privatisation of our national railways. Okay, so this is why you've seen so many different companies on the railway, because they primarily go bust. So then the government has to bail them out and take them over and then nationalise it until another buyer comes in. Let me put this in perspective of the hospitals. Do you know about PFIs when they were brought in within the hospitals?
No, break it down.
Okay, so if you don't know about PFIs and you don't know about privatisation, so the PFIs were built, it was a Labour incentive. All these companies put the money in and it basically effectively...
What does it stand for, what does PFI stand for?
Just Google it, because it means no point. I'm going to explain it to you now. So the PFI, it was effectively a mortgage, so basically owned by private companies who built new hospitals, and then the trusts paid them back over a monthly fee, over a yearly fee. This was a terrible idea because everything went up, and B, a lot of the companies that even built the PFIs are no longer even functioning because they went bust. Like there's so many issues with privatisation before you even get into the moral debate of how do you even pay for treatment. Like I'm not even bothered about talking to that, because until that point, I feel like the whole thing of privatising the NHS is so massively flawed. Like it needs to be kept central.
So you're saying if there's any private investment into the NHS, that's a bad thing?
Based on how it's gone so far, it's never gone well. Yeah.
So you don't think there should ever be any private investment into the NHS?
But how are you going to pay? So this is the problem. So if somebody privately invests it, so somebody stumps up a load of money so we can pay everything. So yes, there's a massive backlog maintenance within the facilities management, within everything within the NHS. Okay, there's a huge backlog. So then when COVID happened, that's why a lot more money went into the NHS, because they were like, shit. Sorry, not TikTok language there, but we need to pay all this money up front because we need everything doing ASAP. Because we're in a massive pandemic, so we can't actually function with all this backlog maintenance. That's why a lot of companies were working in profit when they were working with the NHS. They had quite a good time. So that's one example, okay? But the systemic issue is, when do they pay it back? Because I've just given you the example of the PFIs. Because of how the government runs it, you're just going to put in more debt and debt. So then that money that they would be funded would then just go off to paying effectively a big bank loan. It wouldn't then. So you might fix it for the next 10 years, but after that, it's just going that all you're basically effectively proposing is just merry-go-round effect of, we're good for 10 years. Oh shit, 5 years. 5 years within that 10 years, things going bad again. We get to the next 10 years, it's terrible, and then that's not even taking into all the moral arguments of how you're even going to fund treatment.
Do you know what's interesting about what you're saying is that's exactly what the government does, and we pay them taxes. So that PFIs thing that you described, that's what the governments do. They take private loans on, and then they rarely ever pay the loan back, and then the debt just keeps increasing.
Yes, but no at the same time.
Does that mean that the government is privately? Does that mean that our government is basically owned by private companies?
Well, this is a completely different argument. Okay, so let me put it in perspective. Our country, the government can't go bust because we have a central bank. A hospital can go bust because it's a business. As long as it's attached to the government, it cannot go bust.
Right. So, but that's the NHS hospitals you're talking about, right? But the private hospital can go bust.
Well, yes, private hospital can go bust tomorrow. And you don't know that.
But in a mixed healthcare system, there's both public and private hospitals.
Yes, but private works because it doesn't have the strain the NHS does. So now you're bringing in another argument of, you're saying private's brilliant because everybody can go and get seen quickly. If you flood all the people that are on the waiting lists for the NHS, and all of a sudden they pull all the cash from under the bed that people suppose everybody has, and they all go to private, I can guarantee you the same exact problems would happen within the private sector as it would in the NHS sector. The problem isn't the funding in some respects. Like, I don't think you've actually. I suggest you do a little bit more research.
So all you've done is bring up the PFIs, which are just private loans, and almost every sector still takes private loans. There's private loans in the military. There's private loans in the government. There's private loans in healthcare. Are you saying that if there's private loans in a sector, that means it's privatized?
I'm not saying private loans are a bad thing, but
that's what you are saying, because you're saying that PFIs didn't work.
No. My first point was, when you fully privatise things don't always go as you see them, and then you have to bail them out. So then you're going to end up paying more money. That's the point I'm trying to get to. Is that, are you saying that? If you're proposing more people put in money so we can pay everything up front, brilliant idea.
Are you saying that the existence of PFIs alone means that the NHS is privatised? Because the NHS is not privatised.
No, you're missing the point.
You're missing the point of what I'm saying to you, which is you are suggesting that the cause of the issues is the private investment.
PFI isn't privatised.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
I just gave you an example of when private companies have to put up this much money. Right. The people that made these hospitals, okay, a lot of them went bust. So if you search up, I think it's Crillian, they went bust, and then you've got like Balfour Beatty, Mighty. They're running them now, okay. But they effectively went bust. So it's going to be a spiral effect of. And that's why I gave the example.
That's why I'm trying to clarify what you're saying so that everyone's on the same page. Are you saying that private investment for the NHS is inherently bad? Because that's what it seems like you're saying.
No, I'm not saying private investment. I'm saying full privatisation is bad.
Okay, and are you saying that the PFIs represent an example of privatisation or full privatisation? Either of those?
No, because the use of a PFI is a privatisation.
Okay, so we haven't actually seen how, in let's say the past 67 years, we haven't actually seen how a more privatised system would function in the UK.
But the issue with the PFI is anything with interest fees, you still have to pay them back.
Yeah.
So this is the problem. So they're paying for the hospital and paying for everything within it, from the gas works to the water, to the medicine gas, so even to the beds within it. The hospital don't own it until they finish paying off that lease. So just that isn't privatisation. What I'm saying is that they effectively rent is a rent to buy scheme.
Well, but that's a kind of a semantic. In a way, that's kind of semantic, because then that's what I'm saying. That's like saying because our government is in debt that the government doesn't belong to us, or that's like saying that if you have a mortgage then you don't own your house. It's kind of a semantic thing. Like,
I think you missed my point. If you research PFIs,
I'm not missing your point. I'm not missing your point. I'm challenging directly. I'm challenging directly the things that you're saying, and then you keep saying I'm missing your point. I'm not missing your point. I understand what you're saying. That's why I'm asking the questions in response to what you're saying. Are you saying that if somebody is in debt, that means that they don't own the thing that they have, and that the debtor actually owns them or controls them? I'm just asking you to clarify it.
Well, yes, that's how finance works. If you can't pay off a finance agreement, they take it back.
Okay, so therefore, if that is the case, that debt inherently means that that the thing is owned or controlled by the debtor, are you now saying that means that that the NHS or a healthcare organization shouldn't take on private debt? Because that's what I'm saying. That's the logical conclusion of your argument, is that you're saying it's bad when the NHS or a healthcare organization is in debt to someone, and then the logical conclusion is therefore they shouldn't do that. But then when I ask you, should they not accept private finance, then you say, oh, you're not saying that they shouldn't accept private finance. So your argument is not crystallized yet.
No, the reason why I don't mind just a little bit of private finance is a completely different issue, because that is one of the systemic problems of our country with drip feed funds. Okay, that happens. That happens to the NHS constantly. If everything was paid up front, you'd have a longer effect of being able to better resources. Okay, but then there's more issues with privatisation of that. How is it even going to be funded to even make a substantial business model without it going bust?
Well, it would just have private investment as opposed to being funded 100% by taxpayer money.
Okay, but how would the private investment? How would
building? So they'll build new hospitals other than just the NHS hospitals, or buy some of the NHS hospitals that already exist. Invest in new technology or state-of-the-art facilities, and then create ways of generating funds.
So to even do that, you've got to up the income.
Up the income of what?
What? So you're effectively, the NHS is a business, okay? So it's run off taxes.
Yeah.
So if privatisation, so effectively you're going to take, so effectively if privatisation comes in, we effectively stop paying NI, and we pay that to the private sector. What if
not necessarily?
Okay, so how would you propose it would work?
Well, it's not just NI that funds NHS; it's NI and it's income tax. So there.
Yeah.
So
two taxes.
Yes, you are right in the sense that maybe it would be less subsidized by taxpayer money. But I think that, let's say, for example, if people had the option to opt out of paying taxpayer money to the NHS, and then they could pay for private healthcare options that potentially would be a bit more expensive than they are now, let's say, that could fund the building of new hospitals and private investment. They could come in, build things, or take on loans, because there's a new market now for private healthcare. No?
I don't think you know how much of a black hole it actually is when you actually delve into it. I think because to make it a substantial business model, you can't just build new hospitals and leave the old ones. So this is the trouble with it. So
but the old ones would still be there because there would be NHS.
Yeah. Okay. So effectively, you've got more to pay for them, because you just built. So say you just bought all the hospitals in the country, right? And then you're effectively saying, let's build more.
Yeah.
You're going to need more money back. You're going to need more money back.
Or you could buy some of the ones that already exist.
Yeah. So you bought all the hospitals.
Not all of them, but yeah, some of them. Yeah, let's say.
Oh, okay. So
some of them, and then make them more state of the art.
So some of them still stay. So you're saying some of them would still stay government run, or?
Yeah, I think there should be a mixed healthcare system. So not all of them would be private. Some of them would be private, but more of them would be private.
Why would people then elect to pay? Because that would only work if you gave people the option whether to pay income tax or not, or whether to pay.
It would be
not income tax, but whether to pay national insurance, for example.
Yeah, so they'll be able to opt out of that and be able to.
And you think any government's going to let that happen?
That's the problem. Is the government wouldn't let that happen because they want to maintain control over everybody.
So we agree we can bring real world realization into this now.
Well, it's still possible for it to happen, but it would need to come from the people wanting change, and obviously the people want a socialized healthcare system, a fully socialized.
But I'm telling you, I'm going to finish off and tell you why that wouldn't work, because effectively, if you're going to build this hospital, you're going to need funding. Okay, so you're going to need. So you're saying, we need to invest in new technology, we need to invest in that, but they're the end users. So they're only investing in it as the end user. So that's not generating growth. That's just effectively putting more money into something.
They're the customer. But there's other places.
Yeah, so we are the customer. We're effectively the customer. Okay, so this is the problem. So you pay. So I think you would see that we'd pay a flat insurance fee, but the insurances aren't going to take that on, because the cost of the operation you would have would be a significant amount of money for paying for the hospital itself. That would then have to be covered within that fee for anybody to really want it, and then B, the insurance is going to take a gamble that you're healthy and you're never going to have an operation.
Well, that's how the private insurance system works. They do an assessment and give people rates based on how much they are likely to cost the insurance company. That's
okay,
how
brilliant.
Hold on. Let me talk. That's how all of the private insurance systems work. And I think the massive the thing that confuses me about what you're saying is that's how it works in all the countries that have a mixed private healthcare system. But you're saying it won't work, but it does work in other countries. One, and hold on. One and two, there are other ways to get funding. For example, the private sector is subsidized in other ways because people get government grants when they want to build new technologies or when they want to
that's a government grant though. That's different to investment.
But I'm saying that taxpayer money. Listen to what I'm saying.
You don't need to pay back government grant.
Taxpayer money still flows into the private sector through different means, but it's means that is less direct. It's not just direct funding. It's sometimes grants for new innovation, etc. So there are other companies that would have a vested interest in being involved in the private sector if there were other private options for healthcare in the UK, and there is a private sector for healthcare. And the thing with the private sector is, yes, it's more expensive. Like, it would be more expensive for the health insurance premiums than it is now, but that creates a market. Do you get what I'm saying?
From a business aspect, as the people are doing it, yes, it's going to create a market. But you're bringing up so many more issues than needs to be even brought up, because I don't think it could even get to that point, because in this country we have a systemic problem of privatisation always going bust.
But you haven't
So then when it
addressed...
goes bust, that's going to then... So then
What do you
you're
mean
gonna
by
buy out that debt.
privatisation goes bust? What does that mean?
So I use the trains as an example. That's funded by ticket fares and everything. That's why ticket fares are so high compared to when they're privatised. If you go to another country, I don't know, that has a privatised rail network or more competition within it, it works a lot better. With this country, we don't regulate things well enough in this country. Like, this is the problem. And you're saying the insurances. But in America, the insurances are well known for never paying out or fraudulently doing things. So if you want to compare what actually happened, but that's why they don't, because they do. Do you know about that lad who shot that guy in New York?
Yeah, that's an anecdote. But most of the insurance companies do pay out most of the time.
Have you read the figures on that? Because
Yes.
I suggest you Google it right now.
I have read the figures.
Okay, what are the figures?
They pay out, I think it's like about 80% of the time, and then of like the 20% of the time that they don't pay out, a large percentage of those is because the person wasn't eligible for the things that they were trying to claim for.
I think when you read the figures, it's a little bit different. But anyway,
those are the figures. It's like 75. I think 75% of the time they pay out, and then I think it's like 25% of the time they don't pay out. So they pay out most of the time.
So how do you even govern half the stuff? Because what's going to stop anybody from putting from charging whatever fee they wanted? Because that's effectively what would happen.
The market stops them because people wouldn't pay for something if it's not worth it.
You know how small the market would be in privatisation?
I don't think it would be that small.
But I think it would be systemically small to make it even a feasible business plan, because otherwise nobody would be able.
How did they have a private system in the UK before the NHS?
Do you know any FM companies that are in the country? Because there's not that many.
Any what, sorry?
Facilities management companies that effectively run the NHS for the NHS. So that's effectively a little bit of privatisation already within there, because they're paying a external company to run these. There's not many of them.
Of course they pay external companies. That's not necessarily privatisation. Because they're
if it's systemically,
they're using government funds to do it. So they're getting directly funded by the taxpayer. I'm saying instead of everything being funded by the taxpayer, it should also be funded by the market. And what you said about what stops them from charging whatever they want, well, they have competition with other people that are offering insurance premiums. It essentially creates a larger private sector.
I'll give you a perfect.
It's not that it won't work.
Example.
It's just that it would be so substantially different that you think it won't work, but it could easily work. All it's doing is creating another market.
I'll give you a perfect example of why you're wrong.
Sure.
Okay. So, do you know why BT and OpenReach got made into two separate entities as opposed to just BT?
No.
Okay. So systemically, BT are a very lazy company, and that's why there's been a massive push on getting fibre into everywhere. Okay, because BT never did it. When they privatised it, all the other companies that came in, like your Virgin Media, your Sky, your who else, PlusNet, TalkTalk, whatever, they all just realised, oh well, BT aren't going to change. They're charging this. We can charge this. We can keep basically have a moral standing of, we're not going to undercut you too much. Yeah, we'll have a promo here and there, but So will you.
Yeah,
but
because
but then equally, none of them went and put in the fibre or anything or improved anything that actually needed improving until there was a big government push, which was actually incentivised by government grants, like you said, which was funded by taxpayer money. So this is why systemically in this country, privatisation doesn't work because
the telecommunications
comes in.
But that's because the telecommunications industry is a massive monopoly. There's only like 4 providers, so it's different because with healthcare there would be far more than just the 4 providers like how they have in.
So how many providers would you propose you would need to keep the fees low enough to be able to be affordable for everybody in the whole country?
Well, with a market like the UK, there would be thousands of providers. Just like how there's thousands
of billionaires.
Just like how there's thousands. You don't need to be a millionaire. Just like how there's thousands of car insurance companies.
Yes, car insurance is different to the NHS.
We know it's different, but it's still there's still loads of providers that create competition.
Do you know how much money it even costs to build a hospital?
It's probably hundreds of millions of pounds.
Yeah. So a lot of okay. Yeah. So you're proposing we build new hospitals. Okay. So how many hospitals do you think
buy some of the ones that already exist?
Yes. Okay. So you bought them. You also saying we need to buy new ones. How many new hospitals would we have to buy?
Mate, I don't know the exact numbers because I'm not there.
This is what I mean.
I'm not there doing. No. That's a ridiculous argument. Oh, well, tell me exactly how many hospitals we need to buy. Well, I don't know because I'm not doing it.
Your argument.
My argument isn't that I know exactly how many hospitals need to be built. My argument is that there should be a larger private sector for healthcare and people should be able to opt out of paying tax contributions towards the healthcare system and go private. That's all I'm saying. And there should be other ways of generating income.
You know who would do it? Who's already buying up properties in our country?
Who?
The Qataris.
Okay, so what's your point?
So that's one company would come in. So what?
One company
would come in. What effectively one country will come in, do this, fund it, maybe Saudi and other people within the Middle East, because America wouldn't really do it. I don't think. So then, effectively, you've only really got one market of people that would do
What about the United States?
Okay, so if
you don't think American healthcare companies would want to...
Look how bad it works for them.
It doesn't work bad. It works better than the UK system. You don't think American companies would want to come and invest in healthcare in the United Kingdom?
I don't believe so. I think
really?
The market.
You know, we just had a guy. We just had a guy come on the other day, and he was actually trying to expose that United Healthcare are. He was saying that they're bribing politicians in the UK because they want the UK's healthcare system to go private. So, can you explain?
Brilliant. So why do you think they're bribing them?
No, listen. I'm not saying that they are, but I'm saying your whole argument is that healthcare companies. Hold on, don't interrupt me. Your whole argument is that healthcare companies in the United States wouldn't want to capitalize on the UK market. Why?
Keyword. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Keyword capitalize there.
Yeah.
So they're going to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
So this is the problem. You effectively got 2 countries that would buy. So you haven't got these thousands of people you're talking about.
Why is it only 2 countries? It's big companies in any country would potentially want to tap into that market.
And 9 times out of 10, when you look at big companies, they haven't all got a different owner. They're of an investment group.
Okay, great. There's investment groups that exist in London who would want to tap into the market as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my point is, these different companies, so let's say 1,000, right? They're all run by a very, very small minority of people. That's why the price wouldn't change. That's why there wouldn't be a low price. That's just basic economics.
I've already told you that the price would go up. The price for private healthcare would go up.
Massively go up.
Yeah, it would go up a lot, but people would still choose to have that option and not deal with the public health system.
And it's a risky business model when you look at previous people that have even attempted to build hospitals even on a finance agreement.
It's a pretty short business model. You've got guaranteed customers.
I'm just giving you a point there. It's a risky business model because companies that have been effectively backed by the government, so they said, we'll put the money up, you pay us back monthly, they've gone bust because of how hard it is to even govern the figures. And you're going to tell me thousands of people are going to take that risk?
You're talking about a specific instance of PFIs, and you're saying some of those companies went bust. Therefore, all of the companies would go bust if there was a private healthcare sector in the UK. Is that what you're saying?
That's why it's a risky issue.
because there's a potential for them to go bust.
Exactly. So then,
Right.
who are the people with bottomless pits of money? The Saudis.
But the thing
That's why I think
is,
the
we're
Saudis
talking.
would do it.
The thing that's strange is that we're talking a lot about the private sector, but we're not also talking about the issues that exist currently. So, for example, are you saying that the only way that we should ever continue funding the NHS is through taxpayers' money? So what happens as the people's dependence on the healthcare system increases, as the population ages? What happens as more people continue coming into the country? How do you propose that we address that? Do you think that we should just keep on increasing taxes?
There's already a new hospital scheme and a new hospital plan.
You didn't answer the question.
Well, obviously taxes.
So we're just going to keep increasing taxes?
That's just general inflation.
No, but I'm asking you, are we just going to keep on increasing taxes forever to fund the NHS? And then the more and more people are dependent on it, we just keep increasing taxes to keep funding it.
But there's also other fundamental issues within that of how mismanaged the NHS is.
Of course. So that's why I'm saying that we should address those issues as well. That's that's part of the reform that the NHS needs. But I think also part of that is generating new ways of funding the NHS other than just taxpayer money.
But we've had this and it's not gone well.
We haven't had it.
We have.
We haven't. You're talking about them taking out companies taking out loans to fund the NHS, but that's not what I'm describing. I'm not describing, go and take a loan. I'm saying create investment opportunities by creating a customer as opposed to having 100% subsidized healthcare. Create a bigger private sector. That's what I'm saying. It's possible. You just don't want it to be possible. You don't want to try something different. You want it to be continuously funded how it is. And
but if we all tried something different, then brilliant. But I don't think that's the issue. I think you've got to take in real world things within this country of why it suggests this would go horribly wrong.
I don't think it would go horribly wrong. I just think that people don't want to think about another option other than socialism.
I'm not a socialist, but
you are a socialist.
Definitely not a socialist, but
you've literally said multiple times that things shouldn't be funded by private investment because they go bust. You've said that numerous times.
That isn't socialism. That's just real world facts.
So saying that things shouldn't be funded by the private sector and should be 100% funded by the taxpayer
something
is not socialism.
Something as important as a hospital shouldn't be. Yes, if that's a socialist, one socialist view, that doesn't make me a socialist.
Okay, but you're socialist when it comes to healthcare, right?
Okay, perfect. So
that's my point. So I'm saying most people in the UK think that way. That's why they don't want it to go private. It's not because it 100% wouldn't work. It's because it's an ideological thing for them where they think, like, even if you look at the comments, most people will say like, oh, people that need healthcare shouldn't be customers. Oh my gosh, this is immoral. This is despicable. It's not because they think it won't work. It's because they have an ideological opposition to it. They believe in socialism when it comes to healthcare. And it's okay that they think that. But your whole argument is, no, it won't work on a fundamental level. But I don't think that that's true. I just think that ideologically, you, just like most people, think that when it comes to healthcare, we should have socialism. And that's okay for you to think that, but I just don't think that you're making a good case as to why it definitely wouldn't work.
Argument. You're making a moral argument, not a...
You have a moral argument.
I've literally said I'll make it easy for you and not talk about the moral argument.
You have a moral argument because your arguments about why it won't work are not fully formed. The only thing that you really have is an ideological position about why it shouldn't be that way.
You work within the sector.
Do I work within the healthcare sector?
In any form of presence, do you work within
I used to work within the healthcare sector, yeah.
Okay, what role did you used to work in?
I used to work in medical sales, and I also have worked in pharmacies as a dispenser.
Perfect. So you worked in medical sales.
Yeah.
You know about the misspends then within medical sales. You know about the misspends within drug use.
What misspends?
Within medical sales, there's so many misspends all the time that happen, especially within pharmaceutical sales, because of things like patents, where you have to pay over the odds for things, and there's so many more issues that within the NHS than just who pays for it, because the people are still going to have these problems, and the reason why it's not working is because it's costing more than probably they've budgeted for. So that's why other politicians that want to run for government are saying we need to put this in, we need to put more funding in here. So I just don't think you understand grasping it for the financial aspect. I think your argument of it would keep it competitive if loads and loads of companies were having it, but But that would only work if they only had one hospital. But then the return of investment on one hospital isn't going to be the same as if you own.
The insurance companies don't need to own the hospital. They're providing insurance.
But then how do you pay for?
You just have the option of a private hospital. So where does the private hospital? So where does the private company gain the money to even keep the lights running? Because they have clients, they have customers that pay for insurance premiums, and then the insurer pays the hospital when they need care.
Okay, perfect.
That's how private insurance works.
Exactly. So you've just described it.
Yeah, that's their customer.
So fundamentally, you're already paying for the bare necessity of the current hospitals without even putting in billions of pounds of, probably over £100 billion worth of funding.
Dude, it's just the market. They charge the customer more than it costs them to create the care. Like, what do you not understand about that? That's how they make profit.
So if you were to charge if you charge the customer more than what it needs, that would make it more so unreachable for the average person.
How? Every single thing in society works like that. Your computer costs you more than it costs the people that made it.
Because there's a vast proportion that in this country that don't even work. So how are they going to fund it?
They can still get subsidised healthcare.
Okay, so then people
that can't afford healthcare.
Let me finish. Okay. So at the same time, certain people are also paying for other people. So then that's effectively almost doubling what they're paying. This is the problem. There's so many more issues with privatisation.
Right now, 59% of people pay for everybody's healthcare through their taxes.
Exactly,
so that's already the case. That's already the case that some people pay for other people.
Exactly, and that's out of taxes. So this is the problem. How do you then govern what is a fair price?
The market does that because there's competing insurers that will give competing insurance. You
don't
know how a market works. You don't know how a market works then.
I do very well.
You're asking the question of how does the market regulate prices? Through competition. This is basic stuff.
And I've given you points there where it's not worked because how does capitalism work? Because everybody else goes, oh, we're charging this. Well, we're not going to charge less because everybody still needs the hospital.
In the case where there's a monopoly,
the market wouldn't change.
In a monopoly is when there's people that are able to set prices and nobody's able to compete. But there's not a health insurance monopoly. There's loads of people that can provide health insurance. Like you said, private finance companies or hedge funds or whatever can invest, and they have funds and capital to provide the service of health insurance. It happens in the United States. There's loads of different providers. The example that you gave about telecommunications has like 3 providers. That's why they're able to set the rate and people are not able to compete, and then they don't have any incentive.
There wouldn't be the thousands of people you think there is.
Okay, there's loads of different health providers in the USA. There's loads of different health insurance providers in the USA. Hundreds, thousands of different health insurance providers.
But in the USA, it's set up fundamentally different.
So there is competition.
Happening in this country.
Well, there is competition.
That's how it's been from day dot. They've not inherited any debt.
The point is there is competition.
They've not had to put funding up to fix loads of issues. They've not had to do all this. That would only work. So you know how a trust works, for example, where a trust manages a certain set of hospitals. That would only work if a different company owned different hospitals within each trust. Otherwise, then you're going to have price inflation.
They can buy the hospitals and
price inflation within another trust. No. I'm saying they're buying these hospitals. That's what I'm saying. Only if different private companies owned within different trusts. Otherwise, you're just going to have. Well, we own this whole trust. If you want to,
they would no longer be part of that trust. If they bought the hospital, that hospital would no longer be part of that trust.
No, but I'm using the trust as an example, right? So this is what I mean. So I said one trust has maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hospitals, right?
More like 3 or 4, but yeah, okay.
Okay, I don't think you're very good at your job if you think that. But anyway, they take Manchester Trust. There's loads of hospitals in Manchester. Loads of hospitals in Greater Clyde, up in Scotland. Loads of hospitals within Greater London Trust.
Okay, Manchester University NHS Foundation manages 10 hospitals, but most trusts have only like 1 or 2. So,
One
go
or
on.
two, I don't know. Right, okay.
But go on.
You're missing the point. We're bickering about for bickering's sake here. So that would only work if different companies owned the different hospitals within them areas, because that would then keep the competition. So then, if the people of Manchester only had one healthcare provider or one healthcare company, that person can effectively govern the price.
They wouldn't
to
have one
Manchester.
healthcare provider.
So exactly, that would only work if there was multiple people.
No, bro. You keep
Manchester.
conflating health insurance as a service and a hospital. A private hospital has multiple different health insurance providers that can offer that service for that private hospital.
The price insurance people.
Bro, the customer is the insurance company to
Exactly.
the hospital.
So the insurance company would go to that hospital
Because it's
to
the
that
private
person,
hospital.
then
So
10
there's
hospitals,
public
then finish.
hospitals and
Oh my
private
God,
hospitals. You clearly don't realise that there's a difference between a hospital and health insurance as a
I
service.
do, and I've just tried to explain. So the customer is that. So you're saying right? Okay. So the customer is the insurance company, right?
Yes.
So then they go to the person that they want to purchase from, that one person, and he goes, "This is the price of this," right? Okay. And then if only he owns all the hospitals within, say, Manchester, there's 10 hospitals within Manchester, and if he owns all of them, there's no competition, so he can set his price
To the
whatever
insurance
he
company,
wants.
you mean?
Yes. So
Yeah.
then the insurance company has to work off his price. And my argument is, I don't believe there's enough people that would, like you were saying, that would all purchase healthcare. So this would only work if there was enough companies that all, if the government went, we're only selling 2 hospitals out of this trust per company. That would only work. What you're explaining would only work if that happened.
Do you
Because
realise
that's what
that?
gives the competition.
Do you realise that in the UK, even medicines have price controls? There's price controls within the NHS as well. So you can just say, oh, they're only allowed to set a certain rate for certain services, because you can't charge an exorbitant rate for a certain service in any sector in the UK. You can get sued for doing. Listen, you can get sued for doing that. So all they would have to do is create some kind of control to prevent them charging exorbitant prices. They have that in many different systems.
And do you
Many
understand how
different
trade
countries.
deals work? Do you understand how trade deals work and why we're getting bent over backwards on trade deals versus Brexit?
Well, I'm not
After
talking about
Brexit.
Brexit and trade deals.
No,
I'm
I'm gonna
talking
put
about
it-
the
no,
fact
I'm
that
asking,
there
do you
can
understand-
still
no.
be a
Okay,
private
don't listen, I'm gonna
sector.
drop off, 'cause
There
it's
can
listening.
still be a private sector with competition among the different insurance providers. Because another thing is, insurance providers can also provide different services. So they can provide a high level of care, a high level of coverage, a lower level of care, a lower level of coverage. Your whole argument is that it's not feasible for there to be a private market for healthcare, but there is. So I don't know why you keep pretending that there isn't. Many countries in the world have a private healthcare sector. It's
Niche made loads of
possible
different
for it to
points.
work.
You
You
just
just
running
don't
with
want
some-
it to work.
You're just running with your own narrative and not actually listening to anything else.
I've listened to everything you said.
The reason why I said you understand how trade deals work, because
Sure.
effectively the bulk of the money would come from abroad. Okay, so then a trade deal would happen. This is why I don't. It is another reason why I don't believe it would happen, because we'd have to make sacrifices. Because let's say Brexit, for example, we don't have the bargaining power we once did. Now we're a separate entity, so we would have to make a trade-off. So a company, so it's only appealing if they own a monopoly of certain places. So there isn't, so because people don't want to invest if it's a big price war. That's going to detract from people wanting to buy. So this is the problem. So then the foreign owned businesses, there would then be a trade deal where they go, okay, well, if you let us buy 10 hospitals, we'll let you do whatever trade deal you want, and this would be our comeback. That's just how this is how then the politics would step in. This is why your ideology of it'd be competitive is, there's so many reasons why.
No, that's a good point. Is that monopolies do inevitably form in private systems. That's probably the best point you've made. And it is true that monopolies eventually usually form through things like what you described. But that doesn't mean that it's not possible for there to be a private sector. It just means that it would have new issues that would need to be addressed through legislation, like antitrust and stuff like that.
I think if your argument was we improve the private sector, if we improve it and we get attract more investment to then make it more to offer other options
And subsidise it a bit with some of the money that goes to the NHS.
No, because the
Okay.
the NHS isn't getting enough money as it is. So then you basically
They're getting plenty of money.
take money out of one thing to put into another, and you're just creating a loophole there. This is the problem. But this is why I don't believe it. But this is why I said it would only work. This is why my main point was the companies have gone bust, and then another company's bought them. So this is what I'm saying. This is why it's such a tricky market, because so many companies have gone bust, even building hospitals when they're being funded by the government. So then, if say there was 100 investors, a lot of them probably could easily go bust. So then the other people are going to go, well, we're making a profit. There's less competition. We'll buy them and we'll charge a bigger fee to make up for what we've just for the loss we've just incurred in terms of having to buy a new hospital outright, and we'll make the money back quicker. So this is why I just think there's systemic issues at bay, and I don't think there's the amount of funding in terms of who would even make the hospitals or who would even buy the hospitals.
You're raising issues with how the system would potentially run. Some of the issues are definitely valid issues that you're raising. The only thing is, every system has issues, so you can focus on the issues that would come of it. But I think that where I differ, my opinion differs from you, is you're saying that it wouldn't work inherently. It would work, it would just have other issues, but it would still work. You can still have a bigger private healthcare sector in the UK. It would work. It's just that there would be different issues, like what you say, like monopolies and having to negotiate foreign finance and stuff like that. Yes, valid points, but you still haven't answered my previous question, which is, how do you propose that we deal with the current issues in the NHS? Like, how do you propose, like, because your only response is to just continue increasing taxes?
No, I think you need to look into the budgets of how, what's the priority, because currently the Labour are tackling these issues that you were talking about earlier of waiting times going down. Like the waiting lists have dropped massively. There isn't like they are slowly being tackled.
I'm skeptical of those numbers.
You can be skeptical all you want, but if the facts and figures are there, then
we need to look closer at those facts and figures. Net migration 500k and the waiting list has gone down. Does that make sense to you?
What do you mean? Because we had 1 million people last year.
700k, wasn't it? Or you talking about million total? Net 500k extra people using the system. Waiting list has gone down.
And a lot of these people within migration that can't access free healthcare. They still have to pay. They have to pay insurance and things.
How does the waiting list go down with 500k extra people in the country, even if they're paying for it? Because you've got to look at how many. That's but do you not think that that's weird?
Year on year.
Do you not think that that's weird?
Because there's been because
why can't you ever accept anything that I'm saying makes it like?
No, I can't accept.
500k people entered the country net. Waiting list has gone down. That doesn't make sense. So that's why I'm skeptical of the numbers. Anyway, what was the other thing you were saying?
I don't understand that, because the waiting lists have gone down. If what they're saying is factual, if you're arguing it's not factual, then that's fair.
Sure.
That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
You just have to agree to disagree on that. I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we could be here all night debating everything.
You're right.
You know what I mean? I think I think we have to take. I think we have to listen and think.
Have to take it at face value. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you.
And if we're proved wrong, then yes, that's opened up a load of new issues.
Sure.
But I don't think that's.
But you're saying.
But to go back to your original, but I'm giving you the reasons why I don't think it would work.
I think no. I accepted that some of your criticisms were valid. I don't think that means it wouldn't work. I just think it would be new issues. That's what I concluded with that. But I then put the matter to you, and then your whole argument is that, well, Labour is solving the issue, but they're really not solving the issue. Yeah, but the issues in the NHS are not actually being solved. Decreasing the waiting list doesn't mean that there's not still a massive waiting list. Waiting lists are an inherent problem of a system like the NHS. Are you saying that the waiting list will just keep going down and down and down as the population ages more and more and more? Like, do you not think that this issue will continue if we don't radically change how the system works in order to alleviate pressures on the socialised healthcare system?
But I've given you other issues of why.
You've given me issues of why it won't work. I'm talking about issues
No,
of
no, no,
why
no,
the
no, no,
current
no, no,
system.
no, no.
How
Let me
do you
finish.
propose to fix the current system? Because I'm proposing a solution to the current system. You're telling me all the problems with my solution. Now I'm asking you,
deals.
what are your solutions?
Okay, calm down. Trade deals within countries that manufacture the equipment. So one of the things about Brexit is we've now got our own standard, so British standard, okay?
Yeah.
So then we create the British standard to be able to stamp things within our country to be used within medical facilities. So I think it's Germany have a great trade deal with Pakistan. They manufacture a lot of healthcare equipment. A lot of the healthcare equipment you would have sold and stuff, okay? So they manufactured it. It gets stamped in Germany and that gets inflated 10, 20, or even probably past 100x in certain things. If we were to strike trade deals in places where we can manufacture specifically to meet our own British standards, then that's going to bring the cost down. Okay, that's one point. The second point is how it's managed. I've already mentioned this. It's run as a business model very, very badly, and that's primarily because we don't pay people enough to keep people in. So that's why you've got a big influx of people not even wanting to work solely for the trust. They then go into agency because there's a loophole of education because of the funding got cut for the nurses. Okay, so then you've had a knock-on effect of not enough people becoming a nurse.
And what are your solutions? What are your solutions to reduce the waiting list? What are your solutions to decrease the pressure on the NHS? What are your solutions to increase the standards of care and the quality of care? What are your solutions when more and more people are entering the country? What are your solutions to retain staff because there's such low staff retention? What are your solutions to deal with systemic issues like cover-up culture? Like, what are your actual solutions?
I've just given you a solution. Can you name a solution? Can you just name anything I've just said to you?
Well, you started talking about repeat what you said.
Exactly. So you're not listening. So one of the issues. One thing I've said is the trade deals. We should make trade deals with manufacturing companies abroad in the likes of India, Pakistan, China, whatever country, right, where they're manufacturing these quite cheap. And before they come to the world market, they go and get stamped in places like Germany with the EU certificate, the CE marking. Currently, unless we rejoin the EU, we actually run now off our own British standard, so the BS. So we could actually then strike trade deals and cut out the middleman effectively and use the marking that we created post-Brexit to be able to stamp things. So then you would cut down.
How does that solve any of the problems I just listed? Can you break down further how that solves the problems?
It's because fundamentally it's a financial thing. It's not about it's not about care. It's not about anything. It's fundamentally a financial thing. So if you're paying less, no, because everything comes down to finances. So if you're paying less for things, then you can pump the money into the other sectors you need. And things are run better, and you're getting better prices on things, and you create a better market.
So
like
that
you said,
assumes that the problem is caused by not having enough money. So how would the waiting list just follow the logic further so that I understand what you're saying? How does the waiting list go down from these trade deals that you're describing?
Because then you can pump the money that you've saved into other areas. So maybe like you say, may effectively try and build new hospitals or extensions. A lot of extensions are happening within current hospitals. They're popping up all the time, and they're coming in. And then the next thing you see, and some of them are run perfectly with other investment. I agree with you there. That's perfect. This is that, but that's not privatisation, as we both agreed. But then the next thing is, so then you can pump that money that you're saving in plenty of different issues that are getting misspent, like agency staff, for example. If you paid then a nurse, for example, more money, it's going to be a saving, because like in anything, the agency takes a huge cut out of the fee you're getting. So the person then going to work at the NHS, they're not getting paid what they're paying the agency. The agency is making a huge fee. So then you make huge cost savings and all these other things. So then that's a still issue of education.
And then you're saying you would increase the wages. Is that the conclusion?
So that's one thing. So that would retain the staff, like you say. Okay? That would retain the staff.
And then you're saying by retaining the staff, then they can work on reducing the waiting list.
Yeah. So. Okay. But that's already been worked on because of the staff they get, but they're paying more for the staff. So, but the next point is, let me finish. You can put that money into something else, to fix another problem. Okay. But unfortunately, that's not being done, and that's a very, very long process.
So let me ask you a question: if you're saying that increasing wages for staff would decrease the waiting list, why has that not worked so far when the staff get wage increases?
because they're not getting enough, because there's a black hole in
A 25% pay rise is not enough.
compared to. So this is your thing about competition, okay? There's clearly not enough. There's too many job roles for the lack of people we have. That's why a lot of immigration comes into work in the NHS, because we haven't trained enough people in this country to be able to work within the NHS. So then that's why you have agencies that are set up. Would you, as a salesman like myself, would you then go and work for the NHS, or would you work for an agency that's paying you £10 more an hour?
For an agency.
Exactly. So then if you cut down on the opportunities in it the agencies have, then you raise that £10 an hour, because you're going to be paying the agency £20. The NHS is going to be paying the agency £20 an hour. So effectively, you're saving yourself £10, but giving £10 back, and also giving £10 more to the staff, to what you give it, or maybe not £10, £5, because then you got paid. The maths might be off there, but it's still the point that I'm raising there. There's so many more cost-saving measures you could be making to then fund other things. It's not a factor of how you pay for it from our point of view. It's how it's spent. That was my point of this expenditure of what's happening, because of many factors. Like I've given you one of the nurses. There's not enough nurses being flown in this country.
I agree I agree with the point about cost saving measures. I mean, no one can dispute that. Yeah, renegotiation and other cost saving measures can help, but I don't think that that's going to be enough to reduce a waiting list of millions of people. And I also don't think that increased wages will have the effect on staff retention that people actually think it will.
But how do you think the waiting list would drop through private sector because you're not going to be able to build up hospitals. You don't build a hospital within a year. It takes a few years to build a hospital. So how do you think you would drop even the wait? I don't understand your point about it.
It's not an immediate solution, but eventually with
exactly, mine's not an immediate solution, but it would have. But this is what the Labour government.
I just don't think it would raise enough money. Like I think a private market raises a lot more money than just cost saving measures, because you could also have the cost saving measures and the private investment. Do you get it? So obviously you're going to raise a lot more money.
Because they're going to stump the money up front, but that's also what the government could quite easily do.
You're going to raise a lot more money through the method that I'm suggesting than through the method that you're suggesting.
Yes, but then you come back onto the issues of how's it paid. We've just had a whole debate of that it's not going to be fair. There's not going to be fair prices and X, Y, Z. This is why I just don't believe it would work.
Okay, well, we've spoken about this for a long time. You said you don't think it would work. You don't think the price would be able to get fair. I think, just to conclude, I think that we could make it work through legislation, and we could make it work through creative problem solving. But it looks like we're at an ideological stalemate. We're just going to have to agree to disagree.
I think you've just said you conceded many times, and it always brought up a new point. And your whole point is I don't want it to work. I don't believe it will work. I'm giving you reasons why I do believe things can work. And you don't want to believe in this. I think you.
No, I've agreed with the things that would work. I just don't think that they are sufficient to solve the issues. And I think that we also need a larger private sector and that more subsidy should go towards the private sector. And I think that people should be able to opt out of paying towards the NHS. That's just.
Where do the subsidies come from?
They come from the government.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
Where would that subsidy in healthcare? So there's a budget for healthcare. Where would that subsidy be pulled from? From which budget? The healthcare budget. Who would lose out on money? The NHS.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have this problem of the NHS is becoming more underfunded.
It's not underfunded. It's not underfunded. The NHS can also create measures to increase the amount of money that they get. For example, like even what Reform suggested is a good idea of charging people when they don't show up to appointments. Charging people for other small things, or just regular health checkups that are not that serious, or you could retrospectively charge them if there's no issues identified in their health checkup. Like there's so many ways that the NHS can also generate funding.
Look, I'm going to definitely talking all your flaws into whole there, but I think the more you talk,
you don't think it's a good idea to charge people
you don't think it's a good idea.
You don't think it's a good idea.
Turn up for an appointment. Yeah. If you don't turn up to an appointment and you get penalised, great.
Yeah, that raises billions of pounds.
That's not going to fix the NHS.
I'm not saying it's going to fix it, but you said, where does the NHS get the money that they lose from
and
the
I've given you the reason.
No, you're not listening. You're not listening. I'm answering what you said. You said if the funding no longer goes to the NHS, where do they get that money? And I'm giving you examples of how they can also raise money through slightly more privatization, through creating ways, profit incentives or cost-saving incentives for the NHS. So little here, little there. They can raise money as well, and then the subsidy can get lost as well and go somewhere else to private investment, for example.
You've just said it would create billions.
Yeah,
do you know how
that particular thing would create billions.
Do you know how many people are in this country?
Yeah, 70 million?
Okay, yeah, roundabout. So how do you propose, by charging people for not turning up to appointments, you basically claiming, so let's say if all 70 million people would not turn up to one single appointment, how much are you going to have to do? Please do the maths.
It's funny because you're forgetting...
How much are you going to have to charge them to create even a billion?
Hold on, bro. It's funny because you're forgetting that they also make a save. It also costs the NHS when someone doesn't turn up. So they also save the money that they otherwise would have lost out on from people not showing up to the appointment. That's what you.
Okay. No. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
You just brought up a fact. Okay.
So it is billions.
So let's say it's so work it out how much it would take to make 500 million.
I mean, I can't work it out on the spot, but they say it costs the NHS billions a year from people not showing up to appointments.
Just divide 500 million.
You're not going to be able to do the maths in the way that you think. You would need to know how much it costs the NHS when someone doesn't turn up to an appointment.
Yes, because I don't think people not turning up to appointments in this country cost the NHS over 500 million.
It does. It costs them billions. They've even said it themselves that it costs them billions.
Millions or billions?
Billions.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I just think there's so many flaws in reforms ideas, because even if it saved them a few billion,
it's not that much money, but it still can make up for losing small amounts of their subsidies.
That's a great idea, but then that's not going to cut down on waiting lists.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm answering directly your question of how does the NHS raise other money in other ways to make up for losing government subsidy. That's the only question I was answering.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. But then you've also come up with, if they get treated and they find there's nothing wrong with them, you get penalised. So all that's going to have a knock-on effect is people that think they've got a...
I was just throwing ideas.
You don't know you have cancer until you go get treated.
Yeah, you're right.
And there's loads of other things that have the same symptoms.
No, you're right. You're right. I'm just throwing ideas out about ways that they can potentially charge. Because it'd have to get worked out. But I think that there's other things that they could charge patients for, than just being late. Wasting time or checkups, regular health checkups, you get a whole year. Because for example, let's say you pay for a yearly checkup and you pay a certain amount of money, so you have your yearly checkup and then you just get a bill for it. But then if you get diagnosed with cancer, let's say a certain list of serious health conditions, then you get reimbursed for your checkup. Something like that. I'm not saying that I figured out all the nooks and crannies of the idea, but something like that. You pay for the regular health checkup, but you might get reimbursed if it's found that you have a chronic health condition which is on a certain list of conditions.
But then you happen to pay for fundamental things.
Dude, you always bro. I think the difference between my argument and your argument is, my argument is a positive argument of trying to find solutions to a problem, and all you're kind of doing is picking holes in every solution I come up with. Every solution has issues with it, but you don't have solutions. You don't have a solution to the problem.
I'll give you loads of solutions, pal.
You gave a solution that is not sufficient to solve any of the problems. There's a reason why there's no waiting list at all in the United States. There isn't a waiting list.
Yes.
So the issue of waiting list can be solved by the private sector, but your solutions can't solve that issue.
You know how many people in the USA can't even afford to go to the hospital? They just go untreated because they can't fundamentally afford. You think so? You've brought in moral arguments, which I didn't even want to talk about because we could be here all night. But I've given you about 4 or 5 solutions.
You've given 2 valid solutions. You've given 2 valid solutions.
I've given you more than that.
No, you've given 2 valid solutions. I've been listening very carefully to everything you're saying. It's being recorded as well.
You haven't, because you've asked me to repeat myself about 4 times.
I asked you to repeat yourself because I argue in good faith and I want clarity on the things that you say so that I can make a proper rebuttal.
I asked you to repeat something and you couldn't even do that. But your point, and I've repeated many things you said, so it shows I'm listening to you.
Okay.
But I'm going to leave you because I think you're just going around in circles with your own self. But yeah, goodbye, pal. I don't think you actually understand the issues of private sector in this country.
You're a socialist. It's okay.
Okay, I'm a great,
Yeah.
I'm a great rain.
All right.
So
So let's get someone else up. I think like the thing is, it's easy to come up with flaws with solutions. It's much harder to come up with actual solutions. You know, you could spend an hour and a half picking holes in every single thing I say, but at the end of the day, that does the private sector can solve the issue of the waiting list. It has other flaws with it, like the potential for a monopoly, like that was a good point that he raised. It has other flaws with it, like the fact that other foreign investment companies can try to set terms that are more favorable for themselves. He raised some good points. I'd say those are his two best points. But he can't come up with a solution that actually solves the problems, like all of the people dying waiting for healthcare. What's up, Luca?
What's that, man? You good?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your opinion on the NHS and privatisation? Because I came in and out, so I just first want to get an idea of where you stand, because obviously that'll make more sense going ahead.
So I believe that people with chronic health conditions should get so-called free healthcare, taxpayers funded healthcare.
Okay.
But I think people that don't have chronic conditions, there should be ways for them to get private health insurance, and it should be a bit more pricey than it is now. But that sector should also get subsidies so that they can build hospitals. And I think we should create basically a private sector, a larger private sector in the UK for healthcare, so that people have choice to go private more than they do now, and can opt out of paying or pay less, let's say, towards the tax contribution towards healthcare.
Okay, so is it like a state issued insurance in which you have to, it's like compulsory insurance that you're opting for, as opposed to the American system where it's like optional insurance?
Yeah, or like employer subsidized compulsory insurance. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. From that side, I do with obviously when it's like with countries like France, for example. France obviously has that system where insurance is, compulsory by the state. Or countries like Switzerland, I believe, have that kind of system, which I think is a more responsible road to go down than, say, the American route, because I think that then becomes a bit reckless when it's purely markets dictating things.
What's the difference between the Swiss healthcare system and the American?
I think the Swiss, if I'm not mistaken, I think Swiss or France is like government mandated, so it's like a compulsory insurance fund that you pay into.
They have a private.
I think that's how they, because it's not universal in like the UK sense.
Switzerland has a private health insurance system.
I'm pretty sure they have universal, or not universal, if not free, if not universal.
So they have so they have universal healthcare regulated by the Swiss federal law. There are no free. There are no free state-provided health services.
Yes. So it's like a compulsory state fund, right? So that people pay into like an insurance fund.
No. But private health insurance is compulsory for all persons. So they get private insurance. It's a private health insurance system, but they have to get it.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like an American thing where it's optional. You don't have to have insurance. You have to.
That means that
everyone has it.
The American system is more subsidized than the Swiss system. And you're saying the Swiss system works better than the American system?
I think with the American system, although the American system does, like you say, it does have like loads of companies providing for it. There is obviously the issue of monopolies arising, which is, and as we know with companies, as they get larger and larger over time, if antitrust laws aren't implemented by the state, then obviously monopoly arises, oligopoly rises.
I agree.
So that's obviously a crucial thing.
Yeah, I agree. That's a valid criticism, but I still think that that's better than what we have now. So why did you?
The only thing is if you, because I'll just remember 1 second.
Because I don't know. Someone said the US system costs the most per capita in the world for the worst outcomes. It doesn't have the system doesn't have the worst outcomes. They have the worst health outcomes because they eat garbage food, and the violent crime rate is much higher. So it's not because their health system is bad that they have bad health outcomes. It's because of how they eat and how they live, and the bad food quality. Switzerland is a home for the super rich and elite, no comparison to the UK. Well, he brought up Switzerland and said that it's better than the US healthcare system, but it's more privatized. So that's why I was just making that point. It's a private healthcare system. So you think the private healthcare system is better, I guess? Or what? I don't know.
I think, because me personally, I've got private health coverage as well. I get it through my employer.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm very thankful for that. But I think it is very wishful thinking to assume that, because my employer, for example, has the means to do so, but it's very wishful thinking to assume every employer has the means to offer the same coverage for all people.
Oh, no, of course it is.
Yeah, of course. And that's the thing. I think, although it is a obviously utopian outlook to have, to think that markets, will self-correct, that markets will dictate the correct means for like price signals and things like that. As we've seen time and time again, if the state doesn't intervene with things like antitrust laws, competition regulation, then monopoly does naturally occur. And so I think, whilst it is obviously it's wishful thinking to assume markets will completely correct themselves, that we will have competition which will drive innovation. We hope for that in a market system, but the reality is that when monopolies occur, when smaller firms are bought up by larger firms, when there only becomes 2 or 3 firms within a market, then innovation as a means to competition, which in turn drives innovation, isn't really the goal anymore. The goal is to maintain the status quo of being the 3 or 2 owners in the market.
I understand that, but I'm saying to you that if there is, Rob, this guy is upset. I've already said that yes, monopoly is an issue, but the thing is, even like if that's the case, and we do have a more private health system, like what I'm proposing, why would we not be able to implement antitrust laws?
Because the implementation of antitrust laws is inherently violates the idea that markets will correct themselves, that markets are the best means for dictating price levels. I'm not
saying that it does or doesn't. I'm just saying, why could we not implement antitrust laws?
Because to implement antitrust laws would be the state interfering inside the market, and that doesn't create.
That's fine.
But how is that fine? If markets are the true means of dictating success, competition, innovation, why does the state need to intervene? Why wouldn't markets correct themselves?
To mitigate.
But that shouldn't happen. If the market was so strong, it wouldn't need the state to intervene.
Bro, it's just to mitigate for the possibility of what you're saying. It's a hypothetical scenario. You're saying that that's the main problem, that a monopoly would arise. And I'm saying, why could we not combat the monopoly through the implementation of antitrust laws? We get that ideologically it deviates from the concept of the free market. But I'm saying, what would be wrong with doing that? Well, how would that...
Because... Yeah, of course. No. Fair point. Because that is a valid point. I think that's a very... I don't... Are you like libertarian? I know libertarians tend to be more opposed to. Obviously, this isn't an ideological argument. This is obviously about the NHS, but it's just good to understand. There's a lot of ways you can interpret this debate.
I'm not an ideologue. Like I don't subscribe to like a political.
Okay, fair enough.
Whatever makes sense to me.
Okay. Yeah. I think the main issue is when the state interferes inside the market, that doesn't produce the outcome that the market. How do I word this in a way that it's going to make sense?
Yeah.
If the state acts as an agent within the market, that is the state basically dictating how the market should run. That isn't markets at their most optimal. That's markets being suppressed by the state. And obviously, everyone hopes, in economics, as people say, everyone hopes that free markets are the best way of allocating resources to ensure scarcity doesn't arise. Everyone hopes for that, of course.
Nobody's saying that there needs to be 100% free market. There's no sector in the UK that has 100% free market. Like, think about it.
No, of course. I mean, I don't think there's any country in the world where you can really say that it's 100% free. Yeah. There will always be a sense of intervention on the state in some capacity. Exactly. That's true. That's true.
So do you not think that it potentially could work? Because the Rob guy was saying that it inherently couldn't work. Do you think that it's possible that it could actually work by advancing the private healthcare sector in the UK? I
think as a concept with I think on both sides of the spectrum, when people who are really free market and everyone who on the opposing side is, say, really pro-state, they want the state to have control of everything. I think both sides obviously played with their own inefficiencies. On the market side, as we've discussed, monopolies will arise, which in turn doesn't drive innovation. And that's something crucial that a lot of people need to understand, because if you don't, what is the point of markets? If markets aren't there to drive innovation through competition, then why are markets there? Because obviously that's their base argument, that they are the ones who will...
There would still be a market. There would still be a market. It's just when it starts becoming a monopoly, then it would get regulated to maintain the competition and try to mitigate the negatives of a monopoly.
I think me personally, I think both, because my personal outlook, I think things are best because I'm socialist, but I'm market socialist, so I don't subscribe to the notion of the state being in control of everything. Neither do I subscribe to the notion that the market should be completely in control. Whilst I think, you can obviously look at both theories as theories, Obviously, as you say, it's good in idea, but its actual execution is where you run into problems. And obviously, you can look at it on the state side as well. If you look at a country where it's completely run by the state, there is no capacity for any private healthcare, then obviously inefficiencies do arise, as we've seen when everything is owned by the state. When the state is the head of, say, a certain institution, then obviously you have things like time lags with information. And that's obviously a very serious issue, particularly with healthcare, when you need a quick feedback loop from the people on the ground to management so they can make quick decisions, especially when things about like funding certain research institutions, funding certain treatments. There's those things which are important.
Is there no... So, because I believe that it should be a mixed healthcare system, and I think people with chronic health conditions should get free healthcare, so to speak. Do you think there's any room at all for... increasing incentives in the UK for companies to have more private customers? Do you think there's any room at all, or do you think that fundamentally nope, it needs to be 100% tax funded like most people in the UK think?
I think fundamentally there always needs to be the option of universal healthcare, in which people don't have to pay through an insurance fund or don't have to pay private insurance. I think there always needs to be that option, but I do think that there is a very serious discussion to be had about when people talk about the modern day inefficiency of the NHS. There needs to be a really big discussion about how austerity has played its role in obviously decimating services delivered by the NHS. I don't necessarily think that, like I say, I'm not a complete outright communist. I don't think that the state should 100% rule everything. I don't think centralization is good because it leads to inefficiencies.
How did austerity affect the NHS?
Because when you have a system which is because obviously the NHS is funded through the government gives it subsidies or whatnot. When less and less money is going to the NHS, you obviously have issues like wait lists rising. You have more people.
You said less and less money
for the NHS. So
it's been getting more and more money, not less and less.
Has it?
Yeah, it's had record funding almost every year for like the past 30 years. Some would say it needs to keep up more of inflation, or it needs to be above that rate. Some would say that because it needs to keep up with the number of people coming into the country, etc. But it's still receiving record funding almost every year. I think they just got another increase in funding, 7% or something like that. So personally, I think it's a misconception that they're not being funded enough. I just think the funds are being misappropriated. What would happen if the police was privately owned? It's a dangerous thought. Someone came on here the other day and said that the police is privately owned. Luca, you've gone quiet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up this discussion. Thank you for everyone watching. Now, YouTube gang, if you guys want to watch, continue watching the discussion, thanks, Luca. I'm just going to drop you down, but thanks for your perspective.
Yeah, no worries, man.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for watching. We are on YouTube still at State of Deception. We're going to transition and do a reaction video. I got a couple videos lined up. If you guys want to continue the discussion, you can type in the YouTube chat. I'll still respond to everybody. They just won't be guests, but you can watch me react to some videos on YouTube. So I'll give everyone just some time to transition over if you guys want to. It's YouTube at State of Deception. So everybody on YouTube. By the way, YouTube, I hope you guys can all see this that I'm showing you on the screen now. So this is just a little list, healthcare systems by country. Quite surprising. So the gentleman brought up before the Swiss system, and he said, yep, that one's great. The Swiss system is 100% privatized. So a lot of the systems that people think are not private systems are private systems. And Switzerland has a reputation of being European and similar to Scandinavian countries in their ideologies, and it has a completely private healthcare system. The Netherlands also has a completely private healthcare system. These countries have better healthcare systems than the UK. And then United States, the notorious United States, has a mixed non-universal system. So you don't have to pay for private insurance if you don't want to, but it's a mixed healthcare system. So there's subsidized healthcare for people that can't afford it. The coverage percentage is slightly lower because you're not mandated to have health insurance. But still interesting nonetheless to have a look at. So we've got people requesting, but guys, I'm going to shut down the TikTok live just a few moments if you want to transition over to us on YouTube, and I'm going to continue doing the reaction video. We've got a couple reaction videos. I'm really looking forward to these. Let's just get the titles in case anyone's interested. So we've got some reactions on UK crime. I actually want to do these. I don't know if I'll do these today or tomorrow. And then we've got Odyssey. I love Odyssey so much. We've got a couple of these. So we've got NHS doctor whistleblower, NHS waiting times, Workers' Party Britain saying renationalise our NHS. This video, America needs socialism. I'm not sure if I'm going to do the America needs socialism. Oh, let's go back. Oh, hold on a sec. Have I logged out? Right, let's transition over. So everybody check us out at State of Deception on YouTube. And I'll catch you guys later. Take care. Okay, so let's get this going. I hope my Odyssey's not logged out. Let's just refresh it. We need to log back in, don't we? Could not get user ID. Oh, that's weird. Okay, so Odyssey is literally not working. That's so crazy. Could not get a user ID. Why is it saying that? So Odyssey is not working, guys. Odyssey is down. That's crazy. Why would that happen when I was just about to do a video reaction and Odyssey is down? Okay, we can do some of the YouTube video reactions. Damn, I really wanted to do those videos. Okay, so we're gonna have to do some YouTube reactions instead because Odyssey is not working. But these YouTube reactions should be pretty good and the videos will be available later. So let us begin. Alright, hold on. Okay, not much talking in this video. Fewer criminals to serve jail time under protest. Okay, I don't really care about that. Let's go on to
In today's story, a promising student heading home for the holidays happened to exchange glances, no more than that, with an angry, violent man on a train station platform on a normal Saturday morning. Shockingly, this encounter
This guy's pretty
would cost
quiet.
him his life. If you've been to college, university, or some other major training establishment, do you remember that feeling at the end of the first year? The day when you'd completed all your work, you'd found a way through the exams, been out to the last party, and then on your way home for the summer, looking forward to catching up with friends and family. This is how 19-year-old Tom Grant was feeling on Saturday the 27th of May 2006. He'd just completed his first year's study at St Andrews University on the east coast of Scotland, where he was studying for a degree in Arabic and medieval history. Today he'd been up early to catch his train to Glasgow, and from there he was getting another train home to Gloucestershire. Tom was loving his time at university and he was super excited about the future. And why not? Life was really good for Tom. An only child, he had enjoyed an idyllic childhood, where he excelled academically and in sport. Tom had been especially active in the combined cadet forces, and after university he really hoped to become an officer in the army, or potentially to join the Royal Marines. Tom was a really active man who loved hill walking, especially the trips he took to the Scottish Highlands. He enjoyed being outdoors, and recently he'd enjoyed sailing in Norfolk with his school friends, skiing in the Austrian Alps, and a trip to Amman, where he enjoyed spending time in the desert.
Quintessential private school boy.
He was a huge sports fan, and a big supporter of Liverpool Football Club. He was a decent player too, and a captain of the school's first 11 football team. But today Tom was just looking forward to getting home. He had to change trains at Carlisle to catch the Virgin service to Paignton in Devon to get back to his home in Gloucestershire. He was on the station with his rucksack and his bike when he happened to notice a particularly loud young man. Tom didn't know this man. He was 22-year-old Thomas Wood, who was standing not far from him. Wood was on the platform with his girlfriend Sarah Chadwick, another female friend of theirs, and her 2 young children. The 2 women were just chatting around, talking about food and what they planned to eat that evening. Tom overheard Wood intervening in the conversation and aggressively saying that he would steal his girlfriend's food later that evening. Interested in just who was saying this, he just quickly glanced over, as you do. In a split second, he looked away again without saying anything, just as we've all done on numerous occasions. But Wood didn't appreciate this, and he said to Tom, "What the hell are you looking at? I'll stab you in a minute." Tom wisely just ignored Wood, kept his head down as he waited for the train. And when it arrived, Tom got on and sat at the far end of the carriage next to his bike. Wood, the 2 women and the 2 children with them sat in the same carriage, which was packed with passengers on a Saturday morning, as you'd expect.
Oh, look at that beautiful countryside.
Once on the train, Wood was again soon being difficult. This time he began arguing with his girlfriend about train tickets. It was a really one-sided dispute. She was being really reasonable. He was just being loud, boorish, and pathetic. In fact, he was just plain nasty, so much so that he left her in tears. And the whole carriage was, of course, aware of what was going on. They were just hoping that he would get off as soon as possible. You know that feeling? Wood then got up from his seat and began walking up and down the carriage in a really intimidating way, staring at every person in their seats. Nobody returned his glance. One passenger would later describe it like he was stalking, looking for someone to make eye contact with him, which would give him an excuse to cause trouble. It was a really tense situation, and not what you'd expect on a train packed with families and children at 10:30 in the morning. As the train passed the Cumbrian village of T-Bay, not too far east of the beautiful Lake District town of Kendal, Wood left the carriage, much to the relief of everybody travelling. But he returned just a few seconds later, and now he was brandishing a knife that he had taken from his girlfriend's home earlier that morning. Sitting closest to the door when he emerged was Tom Grant.
Jesus Christ. It's crazy as well when they tell stories like this, from my understanding, I always notice that the guy will seem to have done something for no reason, but realistically he probably said something to him like, oh, like, you know, you're not tough, da 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 da. But it's mad to think that people actually stab people over stuff like this. Yeah.
He was still just minding his own business. As if in slow motion, Wood stopped and looked at him before rapidly plunging the knife in a quick and forceful downward movement towards Tom, and then quickly bounding back from him. Tom cried out, "I've been stabbed,"
Jesus.
as he slumped in his seat. It was the last words he would ever speak. Calmly, his assailant, Wood, just said to no one in particular, "He's dead." The scene in the carriage was one of absolute terror.
Jesus Christ, imagine how scary that would be. You're in a picturesque, like, village, traveling through a picturesque village on a train, and you just see something absurd like that happen. And I feel like, is this something that's new in the UK? Like, have we got any older viewers? Like, did stuff like this used to happen when you were growing up? Because people make out like, oh, you know, it's to do with immigration. Mate, every single white kid I've met from Coventry, I'm like, this kid's a gangster. like, there's a lot of like this now, and it's not just exclusive to certain it's more among certain demographics, but it's not exclusive to it. So I wonder what maybe like the older viewers or the older people think has changed in the UK that has made stuff like this more normalized. And did this kind of stuff happen when you were growing up? I can't imagine it did. Someone just getting literally stabbed over nothing on a train. I don't know. You guys tell us. Is it a mental health crisis?
Families ran for their lives, and they were screaming and shouting. The train manager, having been alerted to the situation, locked the sliding door, meaning that Wood was shut in the carriage on his own. He went absolutely berserk at that and began desperately kicking out at the door, the window, and making those on the other side terrified.
Rocky says it was worse in the 60s and the 80s, especially with the skinheads and hooligans. Damn, okay. I mean, do we have crime stats? I thought, because they make out in the news like the crime stats are way higher now. Like, was they actually higher before?
Managed to break through the door, then he'd attack them too. The train then slowed as it approached the next stop, Oxenholme. Wood was still desperately trying to escape, and when the train pulled into the station, he finally managed it through a train window after smashing it with a hammer and throwing a fire extinguisher through it. Immediately, the terrified passengers ran towards Tom, fearing the worst, but desperately keen to offer help. Tragically, he was already dead in his seat. Tom Grant was just 19 when he died. He'd been stabbed with such force that when the knife was eventually found, it was broken in half. The cause of his death was a single stab wound to the chest, which had gone through his lung into a main artery. Meanwhile, Wood tried to make his escape across fields in the rural surroundings as the police swarmed the area searching for him. Wood eventually ran into a farmer and tried to explain his blood-covered state by saying he'd been cut by barbed wire. The farmer accepted his story, there was no reason not to, and happily drove Wood to a nearby bus station, but en route they were intercepted by a police car at a roadblock, and Thomas Wood was arrested and taken into custody. The people on the train who had witnessed Tom's murder were of course traumatised, and some had to receive professional help to help them deal with their experience of that day. And of course Tom's family and those who've known him best were just utterly distraught. Detectives tried to understand what had made Wood act in such a terrible way on that day, and what they discovered by looking into his past was deeply unpleasant. Wood had been in front of the court over 40 times and had seen time inside prison.
Traumatized, yep. So it would be the PTSD, the mental illness. I'm a very traumatized person, and I have to take really extra special precautions to manage my mental health. It's crazy because I don't think people actually realize how mentally damaged and I'm not trying to scare anyone, but like, I am genuinely so mentally damaged, and like I really have to work every day to make sure that like I don't end up a person like this. But yeah, people don't realize like going to prison, some certain life experiences, they can turn people into an absolute maniac, especially if you combine it with drug use, or you don't do like that daily management of your like mental condition like what I do. Really, really sad and scary, and I can't imagine being a young person going into a system like this, or having been in the system your whole life, because my brief encounters dealing with the system have left me this traumatized. For dealing with the system for like 6 months, 7 months.
His offences included 12 driving offences, 13 thefts and burglaries, 4 offences against property, 8 breaches of bail, and carrying a lock knife. He had only been released early from his last sentence, just 2 weeks before the murder. And although he had been sentenced to 6 months for 2 burglaries, the authorities deemed that he was suitable for early release when just halfway through his sentence. That's
crazy as well, because they're expanding that early release program as well. That's quite controversial. I think that was one of the videos I had lined up, but I got rid of it. But basically, yeah, they're saying that they're let's just get it up in just quickly. Early prison. Yeah, I think they just did an announcement like a few days ago. Oh, this is the Telegraph. The government's ill-judged prisoner release scheme puts the public at risk. Okay. Along with someone says, along with the majority of my countrymen, I'm appalled by the government's decision to release certain prisoners early. Met Chief, Starmer's early release scheme will lead to more crime. So this is Labour's prerogative to release more prisoners, and presumably things like this may happen more often as traumatized individuals are released back onto the streets.
Look, I'm often there criticising these decisions, but his record in this case didn't suggest that he would progress to this extreme level of violence.
He does kind of resemble a skinhead, doesn't he?
He had suffered a tough childhood on a rough estate in Skelmersdale and had been subjected to severe violence at home where his dad regularly attacked his mum. When Wood was in his teens, his mother was finally able to escape the terrible domestic violence that she faced. But this did mean that Wood was left with only his dad as the role model, and he did nothing to discipline his son whenever he got into trouble. It was, you could say, only a matter of time before he was convicted of an offence.
That's an ugly court.
If anything, it was only a surprise that this didn't happen until he was 16, that it wasn't for violence, instead for shoplifting. You can almost tell the sorry tale from there, leaving school with no qualifications and no inspiration for the future. Although he did work in a factory for a short period of time, he was soon content living on benefits, hanging out with a crowd of other young people on his estate, causing problems for the local people, and intimidating those families just trying to lead their day-to-day lives.
It's crazy how the story is always the same, or it's the same very often, and I don't know, man. It seems like this country is a lot more decrepit than the statistics imply, because I know so many people that live this exact same lifestyle, and from the domestic violence in the home to the government assistance, it's just, can this even be solved as a problem? And it seems that more people will descend into this lifestyle. I used to have a song, because I used to do music. There was a song I did, and there was a quote I had in it, and it was like, the system that we live in is so competitive, and it's a continual stress on the individual, and young people who can't get into the system just lose heart, and then they descend into a drug culture, which is almost a subculture now. And I think it's true. The system inherently is going to breed more and more people in cases like this.
As he got older, he was a really decent-sized unit, and he genuinely scared people due to his size, strength, and the fact that he just couldn't care less. He was known for this attitude. And he wasn't averse to using violence on his girlfriends either, if they even just went out with their friends, as he always wanted to be the centre of their world. He was insanely jealous. Once they realised just how nasty he could be, and how quick he was to lose his temper, they tried to get away from him. Of course they did. But as we know, it isn't always that easy. His girlfriend, who was with him on the day he murdered Tom, Sarah, had been punched by him on a number of occasions, including once when he punched her in the stomach repeatedly when he believed that she was pregnant.
Naomi says they are building more prisons. Yeah, I think they're building more prisons as well. Rocky Social it says, if you can predict the metrics that drive people to that behaviour, which we can, you can negate them if you want. Problem is the ones in power don't want to. It doesn't pay. Well, the Met said that they were going to introduce some like a serious crime prediction thing using AI, and it sounded kind of dystopian. So maybe that's the route that they're heading with it. Prevention of crime using technology. That's a bit of a scary thought, though, isn't it? dystopian, as I say. Jeanette Taylor, yes, as well as a cashless society, eventually a credit system. Yeah. There was a video I made a few weeks back, and it was about that CCOT prison. I didn't release it because I was trying to perfect the quality of my videos, but it was about that CCOT video, and it had a compilation of other videos with it, and the video is entitled "They Have Perfected the Art of Human Slavery." And I think that's what's coming as well, is that they got my mum used to say when I was growing up, they got a place for you. They got a place for you. Soon they're going to have a place for all of us dissenters and miscreants and misfits. They got a place for you.
And in the days before the murder, Sarah had tried actively to break up with him to avoid his possessive, violent attacks. They'd been to stay with her aunt in Cumbria, but even during that week, he threatened to kill her a number of times. He tried to throw her out of a window and had hit her in front of her young cousins. Even on the way to the train station in Carlisle on the day of the murder, Sarah told him they were finished. But when she told him that, he continued to tell her that he would kill her. He began pushing and shoving her around, and even told her he was going to burn her flat down. By the time they reached the train station, Sarah told detectives how he was high on cannabis and in a very sulky, volatile mood.
You guys need to see what Peter Hitchens says. So I'm starting to subscribe to this theory more, that cannabis does cause psychosis. I think what happens is people use it to sedate themselves a lot, and it makes them prone to outbursts. And because they are so inebriated by the drug, they are not aware of when they have the outburst, and then they continually build up to greater and greater outbursts until people begin having psychotic episodes. This is a theory, and I used to be a heavy cannabis smoker. I have not touched a thing in, I think I'm like 2.5 years now. I haven't touched it in, which is great. It's not exactly, crack, but I do think that there's a lot of cases. Well, this is what Hitchens proposes, that there's a lot of cases where these kind of psychotic outbursts, where people engage in random acts of extreme violence, are actually highly statistically associated with cannabis use. Could just be a statistical feature, could just be a coincidence.
Even before they got on the platform, Wood had torn up his train ticket during a row with his girlfriend. She told him that if he didn't have a ticket, he'd have to pay a fine or be removed from the train, to which he said, "No, I won't, because I'll stab him." Sarah didn't realise at the time that he was in fact armed with a knife. In custody, Wood responded to their questioning by claiming it was all just an accident. Wood had claimed to police he felt intimidated by Tom on the platform at Carlisle, and said he intended to threaten Tom, but he hadn't planned to stab him or physically hurt him in any way. He said he was holding the 4-inch knife in his hand when the sliding door jolted him, causing him to accidentally stab Tom.
Bro, he is cooked. Is that his defense? Even having the knife is premeditation, according to the courts.
But thankfully in court, he finally changed his ridiculous story and admitted that he was in fact guilty of murder. There was silence in court as he pled guilty, and his plea could hardly be heard inside the court as he spoke so silently. Calling it a truly shocking case, the judge sentenced Wood to life in prison and told him that he must serve a minimum of 21 years.
Madness. Okay, there's a story of the young man. Rest in peace to that young man whose life was taken. I do enjoy doing the crime reactions. I did want to get to some of the NHS reactions. I don't know. It seems that Odyssey's not working. I have some. Luckily, I got some backup videos lined up, but Odyssey is not working. I mean, let's just see. Maybe we can. Should we try opening another tab and switching over to another tab? Well, I'll try it on my other computer and see, because I don't know why Odyssey seems to be down. Yeah. The actual website is down. Okay. Well, again, we've got some backup videos, so let's move on to the next video.
Hey
the
guys,
UK is
back.
not working.
It's good to have you back, and it's good to be here in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And today this video is about how important it is to change your environment to better your life. A lot of people say that change comes from within, and it certainly does. I agree with that. But by changing your environment...
Oh, by the way, this isn't a crime when it's called the UK is not worth living in. My last rant about the state of the UK.
You are going to open your mind up to a much more positive state, and that will maximize your ability to change from within. So if you're unhappy in the UK right now, if you're unhappy in that ridiculous rip-off country that only offers you low standards, bad weather, miserable people and high taxes, then you've come to the right place.
Wow, that place looks beautiful. That he's in Kuala Lumpur. Also, it's funny how like shitting on the UK is like a new genre on YouTube now. Am I part of that genre? Should I tap into that more? Like, I might just start going outside and just making videos on my phone. Like, guys, you need to leave the UK. Everybody's doing this now. I feel like I've been on this wave though for like Zara said he's already made 10 valid points. Yeah.
So I left the UK 6 months ago, almost 6 months ago, to live in this part of the world. And when I was living in the UK, I was doing a 9 to 5 for a bank. I was barely just getting by. The cost of living is only getting higher in the UK. And of course, I'm not going to be happy about that. And I'm one of the very few people in the UK who is not going to let myself get ripped off with these ridiculous high taxes and the ridiculous cost of living. In fact, it's not a cost of living in the UK, it's a high cost of surviving. People are not really living in the UK. I'm talking about people who are working full-time, earning what should be considered a salary that is enough to live well on, but that's not the case because the prices for everything in the UK just keeps going up. The prices for rent, the prices for your utility bills, your car insurance, taxes are even going up. It is simply not working well for the British people.
There was a video I saw the other day, and it was showing how wealth is distributed across the world, and it was explaining how millions in the past 50 years, or whatever, have been lifted out of poverty. And as it showed the graph, that it showed that the main people who have not experienced like a growth in wealth and living standards is like that, basically that middle class in the Western world. This like. It's like he calls it the elephant graph, so it's like showing everybody's doing better, and then when you get to us, basically like the so-called lower to middle class group in the UK, we're like this massive trough in the graph, and then the ultra rich have gone skyrocketed in terms of their standards and wealth and everything like that. So it's interesting how we are experiencing this, and then sometimes you might think, oh well, maybe we're just not being grateful, or maybe we're just experiencing, it's just a subjective experience we're having. No, it's actually represented by the data that we are the ones getting fucked. The so-called lower middle class or middle class in the Western world have experienced the most stagnation out of any income level in society.
Especially for the young people who want to live in a much better...
In the world, by the way.
...life. It's looking like it's becoming impossible to live a happy, healthy, wealthy life in the UK, especially for young people who do not own a home. It's becoming more difficult to buy a home these days. That's because the corporations are buying up all the homes and they're wanting to rent them out for the highest bidder. The UK is only getting worse. It's not going to get better. The current government that we have, that's the evil Labour regime, they have an evil agenda that they are following. And this agenda has nothing to do with bettering the country. It has nothing to do with bettering the lives of the people who live in the UK. It's all to do with making the corporations more money, because it's the corporations that donate money to this government when the election comes. And the government are only interested in one thing, and that's their agenda. They want to get to net zero by 2030. That's not going to happen.
I forgot about net zero. I think it's funny to think like a few decades ago I heard about it. Net zero. Oh, that sounds like some crazy lefty crazy garbage. Oh, net zero. No, oh no, we're almost there, baby. Like 5 years. That's over net zero. 5 years. Like it's coming. It's like when people are like, oh yeah, in the future, in 2020, they're going to be arresting people for speech. It's like, oh, we're here. Remember when we used to talk about that back in the day? Yeah, we're here now, guys. Hi, you made it.
But because they keep pushing it, it's going to drive up the electricity costs, and the cost of energy in the UK is the highest in the world. A lot of people say to me, Darryl, why don't you go back to your country and fight? Fight who? Fight with who? The country is not worth fighting for, in my opinion. The United Kingdom has been bought and sold and paid for to the corporations that only want to squeeze the people for as much as they can get so that they can make record profits. That is not a country that I want to live in. I want to live in a country that can offer me a high standard life, especially in this day and age, 2025. I want to live in a country where the cost of living is not as high as the UK. When it comes to paying taxes in the UK, we have some of the highest tax rates in the world. And after paying all that tax, you take a look at the country. Are we getting our money's worth? The answer is no. The amount of tax that we pay in the UK does not match with the standard of living that we are offered in the UK. The streets, the public transport, the police, it's all of a low standard. Nothing is actually getting better in the UK. With the taxes that we pay, we should be living in a country with a high standard and a safe society. But it's quite the opposite. The United Kingdom is becoming a much more dangerous country. Crime is on the rise. When it comes to immigration, people are entering our country illegally. We don't know who these people are. They are taking up our resources. The government lets them in. And the government that we have are completely incompetent They have no control whatsoever on the country when it comes to immigration, especially illegal immigration. The British people who have been working for decades, the people who built the country, they're being forgotten about. Your parents, your grandparents. Some of you may have veterans that fought in the Second World War. Well, ask yourself, is the United Kingdom today the United Kingdom that our veterans were fighting for? I don't think it is.
You know what's crazy is a lot of the times I think about COVID and I'm like, damn, they really like mass sacrificed everyone. They really covered up all these deaths. Like, they really got away with it. And I'm like, how could this happen? This is the worst thing ever. Like, I can't believe that, oh, we would let them get away with this. Would the people of the past do this? And then I think about like World War II and World War One. Millions of Asians, Africans and Europeans sacrificed at the altar of the war machine. For what? What did they actually get? Even in the aftermath of World War II, like, what did they actually get? Please, can someone tell me? Because everyone acts like, oh yeah, well, at least we're not speaking German. And it's like, but what did they get? Like, it wasn't just the Brits at fought. It wasn't just the Americans. Like, again, millions of Africans, millions of Indians and other Asian countries. What did we get as the people for being used as cannon fodder for the financiers, should we call them? So yes, they can mass sacrifice us and get away with it. So why would they not slowly kill and poison us? Why would they not misdiagnose us and allow the systematic destruction of our health services? If they can make a quick buck out of it, and if, you know, the goyim aren't going to do shit about it. Naomi says, times are changing fast, not for the better. Yes, Sam, this has been going on forever. Yeah, it's not new. As I say, there's nothing new under the sun.
The UK is certainly controlled by the corporations that only want to squeeze the people for as much profit as they can get. And it's not going to get better. For people in the UK right now who think things are going to get better, the prices might come down, no, they're not. When the prices go up, they never come down.
The prices might come down, guys. I don't know anyone who thinks that.
Inflation just went up in the UK. 3.4% or something like that. Inflation might come down again, but guess what? It's going to go up 6% at the end of this year, probably. Interest rates are going to go up. It's going to be harder to get a loan in the UK to buy a house. The future of the UK is looking very bleak. I can see more people having financial difficulty, people becoming homeless, families being evicted, while all the illegal immigrants in the UK get free housing and free money, pretty much. The British people are not getting a good deal. And that is a fact.
It's so sad because before my daughter got killed, I remember I was literally planning to leave the UK. I was like literally like on my toes, like, yep, I was actually going to move to Mexico. I'm like, yep, I'm so ready to get out of this place. Like, no, we've got everything planned. And do you know what I mean? All of that stuff. And then my twins are born and end up having to be on the neonatal ward. And I've literally just been trapped here ever since. And the crazy part is I actually had the money to leave. We could have just left, and I was like, no, let me just work a little bit more in my medical sales job, get a bit more money. I think I had like 30 grand or something, or 40 grand. I was like, no, you know, that's not crazy amount of money. I've had more money, to be fair, and I'll tell the story of how I used to have loads of money back in the day another time. But like, I had a decent amount of money, enough to move to another country, especially a country like Mexico. You know, £40,000, that's a lot of money in Mexico. You could probably like rent long term for sure. Don't know about buying, but you could definitely rent long term, a decent place for sure. And then I just got sucked into this wormhole, and then I think I know another reason why I didn't leave, because I had a court case for like driving with a fake license plate or something. Then after that, I had another court case for like, then it was the social care stuff that they tried to put on me in the hospital. And then I had to stay because my kids were on the neonatal ward. And then now they're trying to charge me because I'm a whistleblower. It's just crazy. Like, I was so close. I had like a bike. I had two bikes. I had a moped and a quad bike in Mexico. Like, this shit's still out there somewhere. I don't know where that shit is now. I was so ready to go. Like, I was like, I'm out of here. I made it. Like, take my babies and ride off into the sunset. And they just fucking just detonated my fucking family. Like, detonated a bomb on my family. Like, but yeah, Mexico's awesome. it's actually one of my favorite countries. In fact, Mexico is in my top 5 countries that I visited, and I visited a lot of places. You know, Germany, Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, Wales, Scotland, America, Mexico, Honduras, Tanzania. I visited probably like, let's say 25 countries. Most of Europe, Netherlands, and I'm going to be visiting more places, but Mexico is in my top 5 for sure.
So my message to you on my channel, it's about my journey, but I've made it public and I want people to know that the best thing you can do for yourself is get out of the UK and live a much better life abroad. And you might be thinking, how? How can I do that financially? Well, you can certainly set up an online business where you can make money online. And a lot of people might doubt themselves when it comes to that, but I ask you, have you ever tried it? Why not try it? And if you don't have the ideas, you can contact me. I've done lots of coaching calls over the past few months on how you can relocate to Southeast Asia, how you can actually...
It's always Southeast Asia. Why is it... White guys, can you guys tell me, like, if we got any white guys in the chat, like, why you guys love Southeast Asia so much? Rocky says, Mexico's one of my favorite. CDMX, Ciudad de Mexico, is one of the most beautiful, safest places. Yeah, I had a friend that lived in CDMX. Oh, Janet, CDMX stands for Ciudad de Mexico. So it's the Mexico City. Rocky says the Metro has a women's only section that I got kicked out of because I didn't know. In Mexico? Oh, in CDMX. Yeah, I haven't actually been to Ciudad de Mexico. So sorry, Amma, that's so traumatic for you and your family. Yeah, like I told you, I'm very transparent about my trauma because I feel like I have to keep talking about it. Otherwise, I'll get all closed in and then I'll start getting all crazy about it. And then I genuinely believe that a lot of these guys, like the video we just watched, that do this crazy stuff, is because they bottle it in. You need to keep talking about it. Like, these lives, this is like my therapy, like constantly saying what happened. Yes, it was real. Yes, bad things happen. Yes, you're not the only one. Seeing other people's life experience and the things other people go through. This is the therapy of remembering, bro, you're not special. Bad things happen to everyone. Maybe not as bad as what I went through, but still bad in different ways. Why name says not today, Satan. YT YouTube channel is going to South America in a couple of weeks to find a place to settle. Or is that YTCH? I don't know what YTCH means. Ciudad de Mexico, yeah, Mexico City. Yeah, I've never been to South America actually. South America. No, yeah, I've been to Central America. I haven't been to South America. But I was thinking, did I say South America or was I saying Southeast Asia? It's white guys like Southeast Asia. That's what I meant to say. So yeah, but I don't know if that's what I said. But yeah, I like Central America. I want to visit South America. And I definitely want to get out of the UK. I talk about America so much that I think people think that I want to live in America forever. But I actually only want to be in America like temporarily for like 5-10 years. And then move to like Central America, maybe even the Middle East, Southeast Asia, something like that.
We earn money online. A lot of people contact me every day and they are desperate to get out of the UK. And it's only those who have awoken, who have really seen the reality of how difficult things are in the UK. And the last thing I'm going to say is this. You can get so much better. You can get so much better than you can in the UK. The quality of life that you'll get if you take action and relocate, let's just say here to Malaysia or somewhere else in Southeast Asia, the quality of life that you'll receive is much higher than you'll get in the UK. When it comes to every aspect of life, weather, people, food.
Prometheus says, in America, it's not difficult to buy some land and live secluded and self-sufficient without relying on the grid. It's so true. Oh my God, guys, I've got another topic for the next video. Next time I go live, let's react to some America content. I'm going to show you guys what I think of when I think of America so that people stop thinking that I'm talking about a ghetto where people get shot or, you know, somewhere with terrible healthcare and drug addiction. I want to show you guys the America that I know and love, the America that I'm going to. Guys, I'm actually going to be in America in 10 days. So let's say tomorrow or the next live I'll do the America live. And then I'll show you guys some videos of like places that I've either been to or I know about in the United States. But yeah, that's the kind of lifestyle I want to have. Live secluded, self-sufficient and not rely on the grid. Get some solar panels, some land. I need somewhere with some green coverage though. I don't like the deserty parts of America. I don't want to live in the desert. When I was in Arizona, I was like, yeah, I'm cool on living in a place like this. And it's a nice place, but it's just too deserty.
The environment, the culture, everything is just so much richer in this part of the world. And I would certainly advise everyone to come here and experience it for themselves, especially those who are interested. Of course, in reality, not everyone who watches this video is going to pack their stuff and come to Southeast Asia.
Oh, yep, Southeast Asia, let's go.
But for those who are really serious about bettering their lives, why not give it a shot? Come out here to Southeast Asia. Work hard on yourself, better yourself mentally, physically, spiritually even, and
use that exchange rate to your advantage, because you know that only £10 here can get you some prime teen pom pom. Come on over to Southeast Asia. Oh, should we do this video?
He didn't fight the arrest.
What's this one after?
In the Stroblit VIP section of the...
Okay, this is interesting. We're doing
He
a lot
didn't
of crime
fight the
today.
arrest. In the Stroblit VIP section of the...
Okay, this one's British biggest teen drug boss just got caught. Now, I usually wouldn't even watch a video like this. I do like crime, but I like the real, crime, like serial killer chops off head. This one looks cool, like British biggest teenager drug boss. I think he had 20 million. Teenager, 20 million drug boss. That's crazy. Panels are cheap, $2.99. Yeah, my converted bus has solar panels in the UK. Granted, it's in the UK. We need to get that shit out of the UK. I'm hoping to maybe buy some land somewhere, like not much land, like, you know, like 3-4 acres, like what I can get for like a few grand, like 3-4K in Europe as well. So maybe like in Scandinavia or Southern Europe, I'll just buy like a little bit of land just to basically store my bus when I go there. So then I'll be able to drive around Europe, pull up, park my bus, do the solar panel thing. You know what I'm saying? That's coming in 26, to be honest. And then I'm hoping to be moving to USA by late 26. But we'll see what happens.
Beaters Pacha nightclub. The music...
Okay, hold on.
He didn't fight the arrest.
Let's start this again. Hold on.
He didn't fight the arrest. In the Stroblit VIP section of Ibiza's Pacha nightclub, the music still pulsed. But Eddie Burton stood still. No panic, no protests. Spanish police had arrived with a name and a face. But the man they were looking for didn't officially exist. Not under that alias. Not in that country. He looked like a tourist. Clean. Baby-faced. But the name on the arrest warrant carried weight.
No way is that bro the biggest teen drug... No, bro.
He looked like a tourist.
Bro.
Clean.
No, bro. This is him. No.
Baby-faced. But the name on the arrest warrant carried weight across Europe. Eddie Burton, 23, was the architect of a trafficking network that had smuggled kilos of heroin, cocaine and ketamine into the UK. He wasn't caught with drugs. He didn't drive the lorries. He barely touched the product. From Liverpool to Amsterdam, his fingerprints...
I knew he'd be from Liverpool. There's some real bad man youths in Liverpool.
...were on everything that mattered. He didn't just move weight, he moved the entire system, quietly and remotely, with his ex-partner handling the UK end like a logistics firm. It took months of surveillance, digital forensics, and a nightclub sting to bring him down. This is the story of the schoolboy who ran a £20 million drug empire, and the moment it all collapsed in the glow of Ibiza's club lights. Before the lorries, before the nightclub, before the 20 million, he was just a kid in Liverpool, 10 years old, uniform half done up, trainers are too big, and already in the game. It started simple, a short walk, a plastic bag, a nod from someone older, the kind of task you don't question when you're trying to prove yourself. To outsiders, he looked harmless, a child, but that was the point. Older boys used him like camouflage.
Janet, sorry to cut off the video. Janet says, I wonder how many folk involved in the chat went and got gibbered to the hill, masked up and stayed indoors while our leaders carried on partying on Moss. Janet, come on, we can't create division. That would be me. I'll be there shitting on everyone, but we're trying to build a platform. We'll start shitting on them later. Rocky says, Europe, go to Montenegro. I'll need to look up Montenegro. Yeah, come on, man. I'm an unvaccinated Chad over here, baby.
Soft face, small frame, never drew attention. He ran for them, then watched them, and later, he outgrew them. By 13, he knew the patterns, when to talk, when to vanish, how to spot police before they clocked you. He didn't flash money or chase reputation. He learned the system in silence. Quick to spot, quicker to adapt, and always paying attention. People say he was trouble from the start. Family members would later call him a tearaway, too smart, too angry, always pushing boundaries. But it wasn't chaos he wanted, it was controlled. He wanted to move weight without ever touching it. By the time he was 16, he'd stopped being the courier. He was giving the orders. Liverpool gave him the education. Amsterdam would give him the scale. At 19, he slipped out of the country. No big send-off, no missing persons report.
They always go to the same places: Liverpool, Amsterdam. I think it's because of the ports, isn't it? Liverpool, Amsterdam, and then party and get a market in Ibiza, make connections.
Just a flight, a flat, and a different name on the lease. Back home, no one knew exactly where he'd gone, but they knew why. He wasn't running anymore. He was building. This wasn't a holiday. It was a shift. Burton had seen the ceiling in his own postcode. Too many egos, too many watching eyes. In Amsterdam, the real work could begin, not with violence, but with structure. He didn't carry knives or wave cash. He met quietly, sat in the back, and took mental notes. Slowly and patiently, he built his supply line. Not as someone importing weight, but as someone managing it, coordinating hands without ever being seen. He lived small, rented short-term, changed phones often, never left a trail longer than a few blocks. While others bragged about movement, Burton studied it. Ferry schedules, freight companies, driving hours. And behind him, he left nothing. Back in Liverpool, people still spoke his name, but no one could say where he was.
Look at him, bro. Oh, serious you, man. Wow.
That's how he wanted it. He didn't need to be feared. He needed to be invisible. From Amsterdam, he reached out. Spain came next. A second base. Sunlight, villas, and another layer between him and the risk. Ibiza gave him distance. It gave him cover. And when he needed to disappear completely, it gave him silence. He moved people. Quiet links in a chain. Couriers with clean records. Drivers who asked no questions. Brokers who only knew one end of the job.
Bro, I'm such a nerd now. I just sit in my fucking room and just do that video. He's like, yeah, I'm out here making connections and all. I'm just here like in my room. Yes, guys, it's TikTok live. Come on, guys. Let's get debates going.
Each played their part. None saw the full picture. He gave just enough. A route, a drop-off, a name. Nothing more. And watching all of it, quietly pulling the strings, was a boy who once delivered weed in a school bag. Now 21, hiding in plain sight and building something industrial. While Burton slipped further into Europe, she stayed anchored in Liverpool. Her job wasn't to watch from the sidelines. It was to make sure everything kept moving. Sean Banks wasn't decorated. She was the bridge. She looked like someone chasing a lifestyle, not running logistics for a smuggling empire. Instagram said yachts, pool days, city breaks, beaches in June, designer bags and soft filtered light. But behind the stories was a different role, one that didn't show up in hashtags. Money had to be laundered. Couriers had to be briefed. Routes had to be checked, changed and covered. She handled it all, from behind.
This video is kind of long, by the way, guys. I don't know, maybe if you want to watch, you might want to watch it yourself. I think I might watch this like on my own time, but it's quite long. Do you guys want me to continue the stream? I can continue the stream, but we've been quite long now. Because we'll end up doing another half an hour on here. And it's kind of a little bit off topic, but I did want to watch this. Let's see. I just want to check what other videos we have lined up. Because the videos, unfortunately, the videos we had lined up for today are not actually available. That's the only problem. Like, I've got them here, but they won't play in a playlist because, yeah. I mean, I could try and play these. I think I'm going to save them for another live. Yeah, let's do that. So, guys, I'm going to wrap up the live here. If you want to... Oh, Naomi says she's enjoying it. Okay, let's continue watching this, and then we'll end after this video, because I had these that I wanted to watch with you guys, but we'll do that another day, probably tomorrow. So let's just continue watching.
Behind the scenes and occasionally...
I'll get something to eat.
On the front line. Between June 2022 and October 2023, she flew to Amsterdam and Spain nearly every month. Always short stays, always alone. On 2 of those trips, she came back with more than a suitcase. Phone evidence later confirmed it. Ketamine and cocaine hidden in her luggage. No criminal record, no flagged history, just another holidaymaker coming through arrivals. But phones remember what people forget. Buried in her messages were plans, drop-offs, and cold reassurance. After one major seizure in Dover, she texted Burton. Her prints might be on the bags. He told her not to worry. No one had her prints on file anyway. She wasn't a mule. She was the one doing the scheduling. The NCA later said she was essential. The organizer who made sure Burton's distance never became a weakness. She moved cash, prepped trips, sourced clean couriers. She was both a firewall and fixer. And while he kept his name off everything, she left fingerprints. Literally. Her calm was her mistake. She thought the background was safe. that no one would look twice at a woman flying home alone with a designer carry-on. But every quiet roll leaves a trace, and every trace eventually leads back. It was meant to be routine. Just another HGV rolling into Dover, paperwork clean, driver calm, boxes loaded. But Border Force officers flagged it anyway. Inside, hidden beneath shopping bags and taped up cartons, they found something else. 90 kilos of ketamine and 50 kilos of cocaine. July 3rd, 2022. One seizure, one quiet red flag. 6 weeks later, it happened again. A second lorry, a different driver. This time, the concealment was professional, industrial. A modified fuel tank, reinforced and sealed. Inside, 142 kilos of cocaine and 25 kilos of heroin. Packed tight, built to move undetected. Combined, the two shipments totaled 307 kilos. Street value, £20 million. The drivers didn't have answers, but the loads did. Forensics found traces on the wrapping, on the bags, inside the adapted tank. One set belonged to Eddie Burton, linking him not to the transport.
The way this guy talks is so funny. On my knob, on my shoulder, round the back of my ear. Like everything he says has like an alliteration, or not alliteration, like I don't know what it is. Like, guys, it's just leave me alone now.
But to the preparation. He hadn't crossed the border, but the prince travelled without him. Another set belonged to Cyan Banks, on the ketamine bags from the first seizure. A direct trace from someone who claimed to be in the background. Together, the evidence didn't just show association, it proved contact. In the rooms where the drugs were packed. On the materials meant to vanish into distribution, neither of them was caught at the border. But both had touched what was meant to stay hidden. And when investigators pulled the threads, flight records, phone extractions, encrypted chats, the scale of the operation began to reveal itself. The drugs were just the beginning. The people moving them were much harder to see. They thought encryption would protect them. No names, no calls, just strings of messages passed through Signal and WhatsApp. Throwaway numbers, fake contact names.
Anybody who actually thinks Signal and WhatsApp are secure, man, you guys are too gullible. I know it's probably no one in the chat. You guys aren't international drug dealers, right?
Devices wiped every few weeks. It was meant to keep them invisible, but nothing is truly invisible. Especially when the first seizure triggers a digital review. Investigators recovered more. Logs, transfers, flights. The pair communicated like colleagues. Timelines, quantities, cover stories. Coordinating multi-kilo shipments like logistics managers. Their chats used code, but not enough. References to, the thing, or the run matched exactly to known shipment dates. Prices lined up. Locations lined up. Even the emojis weren't accidental. A snowflake for cocaine. A pill for MDMA. They planned everything, and saved nothing. But the phone did. And then came the travel trail. Between June 2022 and October 2023, Banks flew to Amsterdam and Spain nearly every month. She wasn't on holiday. She was in the room before the bags were sealed. Her boarding passes, her hotel check-ins, her return flights days before each seizure. Every movement left a mark, and investigators matched them, one by one. Encryption gave them confidence, but not immunity. The NCA now had the blueprint, not theory, not a rumor, a timeline, a trail, a pattern of movement and coordination, and with it, two names they couldn't ignore. Cyan Banks wasn't just moving drugs, she was building cover. During the pandemic, when international travel ground to a halt, she found a way through, not just for herself, but for others. Investigators later uncovered a scam she was running in parallel, selling doctored COVID-19 travel documents.
Oh, wow, that's interesting, doctored COVID-19 travel. By the way, I'm going to just rewind because I've got a little story about this. Just responding to what... Oh, Jeanette's asking me if I trust what the NHS say. Of course not. The NHS killed my daughter. Why would I trust him? I hate him. But yeah, funnily enough, when I was in Mexico, there was like a whole underground market for doctored COVID-19 documents. Because a lot of people don't know is that during COVID, Mexico was one of the only countries that were open. So all the freedom-loving people like me, we all flocked to Mexico, and everyone was just going around living free and buying their like doctored COVID documents and stuff. And so yeah, this woman apparently was selling them. Let's hear this again.
Cyan Banks wasn't just moving drugs, she was building cover. During the pandemic, when international travel ground to a halt, she found a way through, not just for herself, but for others. Investigators later uncovered a scam she was running in parallel, selling doctored COVID-19 travel documents, fake test results, altered vaccine records, proof of travel exemptions. all tailored to get people past restrictions. At first glance, it looked like opportunism, just another fraud in a time of chaos. But when examined alongside her regular trips to Amsterdam and Spain, it became something else, an operational advantage. She didn't need forged documents for profit. She needed them to move unnoticed, a side hustle on paper. But in practice, a tool, another layer of cover, another way to stay moving while most of the world stood still. There's no evidence the scam moved the product directly, but it moved her. And in an operation built on timing and silence, that was enough. The fraud didn't take the network down, but it added weight. And it showed one thing clearly. She wasn't just running drugs, she was running interference. Let's move back to the core investigation part. By the time the second lorry was seized, Eddie Burton was long gone. He hadn't disappeared. He'd relocated, like he did previously. He stayed out of the UK, out of reach, out of sight, but not out of mind. The NCA began building a file, shipment timelines, phone analysis, C.M. Banks's travel records. Every detail pointed to Burton, not as a foot soldier, but as the one behind the curtain. The evidence was growing.
Burton, the one behind the curtain.
But they needed him on British soil. By mid-2023, the case was strong enough to trigger international action. Burton had become the subject of a multi-agency manhunt, led by the NCA's Joint International Crime Centre in partnership with Dutch and Spanish authorities. They didn't know where he'd land next.
You don't play with the NCA. Oh, he looks like a little kid.
But Ibiza made sense. He'd been seen there before. Banks had flown in and out. The island gave him distance, sun, and a steady supply of anonymity. In August 2023, Spanish police moved. Intelligence placed Burton at Pacha nightclub, not on the run, not in hiding, on a night out. They didn't wait. Inside the club's VIP section, surrounded by lights and bass lines, officers made the arrest. No chase, no struggle. He was using an alias. The ID didn't match, but fingerprints did. He wasn't just a name anymore, he was a match. And within weeks, extradition paperwork was underway. Burton had built a network across borders, believing distance made him untouchable. But the distance only delayed the inevitable. Spanish authorities held him long enough for the paperwork to clear. Extradition was processed through Germany, then finalised by the UK's National Extradition Unit. In March 2024, Burton was flown back to Britain under guard. The transfer wasn't just a legal formality, it was the final move in a case that had taken nearly 2 years to build. By the time he landed...
But how do we know that he's not taking the fall for someone bigger who's got like a more established criminal network? Because it is strange for someone this young to have such a big criminal network behind. I don't know.
The prosecution had everything. 2 seized shipments, a combined 307 kilos of Class A and B, coordinated messages between Burton and Banks, flight logs, burner phones, payment trails, and forensic evidence that linked them to the drugs before they ever crossed into the UK. He didn't come quietly, but he didn't fight either. There was no point. In the meantime, Banks had already fallen. C.M. Banks was arrested in December 2023 at her home in Liverpool. No fanfare, just a knock at the door and an evidence folder that left no room for doubt. On her seized phone, encrypted chats, drop-off instructions, travel logs, and casual mentions of shipments by weight. Previously, they were only monitoring the messages, but now they have strong evidence of their work ethics. They stood separately in the dock. No eye contact, no shared defense. The courtroom didn't need backstory. It had transcripts, timelines, and the contents of 2 lorries. On the 12th of February 2025, at Canterbury Crown Court, one of the UK's most quietly ambitious drug networks came to a close. Eddie Burton, 23, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of importing Class A and B drugs, heroin, cocaine, ketamine, and cannabis.
Damn, bro's out of here.
He wasn't described as reckless, he was described as methodical, a coordinator of an exceptional reach who operated through encrypted systems, third-party couriers, and a continent-wide supply chain. The judge made it clear, Burton believed that encryption, distance, and youth would shield him, that living abroad meant living beyond the reach of UK law, but it didn't. C.M. Banks admitted to 7 offences, including drug importation, money laundering, and direct coordination.
I bet she got like a massively reduced sentence compared to him as usual, even though she did the same shit. You never know, maybe she didn't. But Naomi Dana says, yes, my thoughts too, been taken by county lines at a young age. Damn, bro. I never got involved in that. I'm not like a street-oriented individual. I have been a very advanced level criminal before, but I'm not going to get into that story now. But it was never on a street level in the way that these guys would play.
The court rejected any claim that she was.
And obviously, just so you guys know, I'm not a criminal right now, but I have been objectively speaking, a criminal, and I did make a lot of money doing that. Just allegedly, let's say, but not anything like this. But I will speak about it because I've got no further action for a lot of the stuff, and it's a story for another time.
Was a passive participant or coerced partner. The judge called her indispensable. The NCA called it a warning, a reminder that the modern drug trade doesn't always look like violence. Sometimes it looks like flight itineraries, fake documents, and a message that says, don't worry, your prints were never taken. But they were. And the system kept the receipt. Eddie Burton was sentenced to 24 years in prison, a full term, weighed not just by the drugs, but by the structure behind them. A business built in silence.
Wait,
full
what
term,
did he get?
And the system kept the receipt. Eddie Burton was sentenced to 24 years in prison, a full term, weighed not just by the drugs, but by the structure behind them. A business built in silence, powered by control. Ian Banks, 25, received 17 years.
Oh, they smoked their chops. I thought they were going to get like 10. 24 years and 70. I want the bumper, Rouse Cloud. Bro, they got literally more. That's a murder. Nah, that's not fair. That's not fair.
What do you make of the sentencing? Too harsh, too light, or exactly what they deserved?
Mad.
Drop your thoughts in the comments.
I don't know why.
Little pimp.
Oh, this is the final video I wanted to watch.
Guys, we 700.
I might do another video now because I feel to. This is the last one. Poland is the most racist place he's ever been. This guy, he travels to loads of different places. Sorry for the abrupt change over, but yeah. What did you guys think of that? He got 24 years. That's madness. Exactly, pedos. Pedos should get way more than that, or PDFs, because I don't know how sensitive the YouTube censors are. Presumably not as bad as TikTok. But yeah, I wanted to watch this video. Guys, because I love you, we're going to watch one more. I'm just going to chill and watch this video with you. He's on about Poland. He's been to loads of countries, Saudi Arabia, India, all the places that people would think that you haven't been to. So let's hear what he's got to say.
Likes, yeah. 700 likes,
over there,
please.
don't.
But they will look after you, bro. They will look after you.
You got this maniac talking about.
We had non-Muslims with us. We had non-Muslims with us.
Let me tell you something.
And they had the best time of their life.
Come back. Let me tell you something.
Who's gonna have non-Muslims with them?
This country, yeah.
No, we had non-Muslims with us,
You
bro.
can only go 100 meters without seeing a K in it. Yeah. You see over there, it's a bit more pattern. Like even the soldiers when they get a bit.
Let me
say
show you
stuff. I'm
something.
from here. Yeah. I go Afghanistan. I see Taliban. I ain't got no wicked talk for them. Yeah. I know I can get slumped in a minute, dashed in a corner somewhere, and anybody that wants to have talk for them, I'm not going there with them. Yeah. So we all get targeted the same Russian.
All I'm saying,
nah, bro.
we got a pattern, bro.
Don't follow
We got a
me.
pattern
The
for you in
ones Stay in
Afghanistan.
the short corner.
Hey, carry with the story. I was coming over there with period. What's going on? I carry with the story, like, so they put out the gun.
Magic knows.
Nah,
anyway.
so basically,
You're
when
not
they put up
hearing
the
this.
gun, yeah, bro, I gotta give props to my tour guide. He's a soldier, bro. You know what he
Jumping
done?
between
Man
you,
came in the
whatever.
middle.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
He stuck.
Fuck off.
He stuck it on them.
The show.
What up?
No, Chubashir told me he couldn't lie.
Boski, man, stuck it on him, bro.
Yeah.
The tour guy stuck it on him. Said, what you
Selective
doing? What you
badness.
doing,
You stuck
brother?
it on that guy, but not that guy.
But the gun's
They're
still
good guys.
pointing, bro.
Yeah, the tourists. What you doing? What you
gun's
doing? He
still
stuck it on them. And
I
then
think they're talking. I know you guys might not be able to understand what these guys are saying as much, but they're talking about him. I think traveling to like somewhere like Afghanistan, or like a country with, you know, people that got Kalashnikovs and stuff. And he's talking about how they intervened in the situation, but he's gonna get to Poland, I think, hopefully.
he started, brother, I saw him grab the gun, did that, bro. He just pushed it down. And then man calmed down. He calmed down afterwards.
Well, every
Credit was right.
no. Apart from
Credit was right. Like, man could have shot them still. Man could.
forget.
You're right.
Bro.
No, I'm saying if man had a K, man could have.
bro.
You're gonna shoot one of them. What?
No,
You're
no,
gonna shoot
good.
thousands of them.
Was there thousands of them?
What?
I didn't
Taliban,
see
bro.
that man just pulled his gun.
You are capping.
bro.
You did not see 1,000 Taliban members, bro. Stop it.
He ain't seen the video, has he?
So there was 1,000 Taliban members
No,
there.
not at that moment.
Right?
Not at that moment.
Stop it. You're assuming this. How do you know that? Bro, stop
Hold
it.
on, let me say
man.
something. Hold on.
You wouldn't get all
Bro,
this.
let me say, listen. I'm a black man in
Now you're knowing
Afghanistan.
that.
I stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
You're gonna shoot one Taliban guy, brother. You're not
mad.
gonna survive the
You're
next
not
10
leaving.
seconds.
You're not
Michael
leaving.
Jordan, brother.
You're not
leaving.
Not even leaving in the next 10 minutes.
Seconds.
Next
From
10 minutes.
seconds to minutes.
So there's
man.
1,000
minutes.
They seem so pissed off. It's like they think he's lying about his story. I just want him to talk about Poland.
man
He's
solo.
high-
Last video and then we're off.
in someone's house. Bro, this is the Taliban we're talking about.
They're in the mountains.
Bruv, look at that. You see
So
that?
you've got a K, but I can't get.
Bro, you're in Afghanistan. The people
So you
that
had it for
defeated
display
the British,
purposes only. You would
defeated
have
the
still let them shoot you
Americans.
with the K.
It's impossible you're gonna get
Nah,
away with shooting one of them.
no
bro.
way,
Just-
brother.
there's no logic.
You can't.
There's no logic, bro. There's no logic.
Remember, those Afghan, the Taliban, yeah? When I asked them, listen, let me hold your thing.
believe Ming is
Let me-
taking on the Taliban.
Let me hold your thing.
Taking
But
on-
you
he's
know- you
holding
don't
their
even know how
strap. You
rude,
lot are
but-
moving
No, I
like
swear
they're
that-
unspeakable, but they're showing him the strap. They're talking about that, but you, I
Nah,
can't talk
bro,
to them.
they gave me the straps.
obviously,
but you know what?
obviously.
It's what I clocked. You know what I clocked? There's 2 Talibans, right? Yo, brother, let me hold your thing. Let me see the weight on it.
What's your ones?
Man, give me the thing, yeah? You give me the thing. Wallahi, there's another Taliban behind him. Hands on the, like,
Ready.
his fingers on the
Ready.
hand, just in case.
Just in
man
case
wanna-
you do something.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah,
Do
they're
you get
ready.
me?
They're ready.
That's how it is, bro.
How is
over
it
there.
like in Maryland?
How's it like in Maryland?
Yeah. In comparison to all of that.
I feel
So
more
you must
safer in
be-
Maryland.
You feel safer, man. I'm going to
Yeah.
tell the man them. Yeah,
I
stop
feel more-
making you feel so unsafe.
I feel more safer in Maryland, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, rappies are everywhere,
Afghanistan
bro.
is-
Syria, bro. Syria
He's
is
a
another
madman. I don't even know how to feel in Maryland, but or in Afghanistan, but I'll just imagine that I'll feel safer in
Of
Maryland.
course. Will you man go to Afghanistan?
He's a
Would you
madman.
go there?
You went
Probably
there.
not. But will you guys go
But
there?
you went
I
there.
said, yeah.
But I'm asking you, will you guys
Bro,
go there?
I'm not on it.
Brother,
Why?
audience
I'm
know,
not on
bro.
it. Yeah.
The audience
bro,
know.
let
We're
me
gonna
tell you
take them
something.
three.
Yeah? Let me tell you
Both of
something.
them, I
Obviously,
think.
you're a
I'll
vlogger.
take
It's
you,
different.
man, there.
Remember my
Yeah.
earlier statement?
Yeah.
Yeah. Once I pull out my money and I travel, I want to go somewhere plush. I want to see pools. I want to see nice girls. I don't want to see
There's
no
probably that
time
there,
zone.
though.
Anywhere
No, but
greasy.
that's not there as well.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
There's
There's
not
probably-
millionaires there.
Yeah, don't think there's not a nice.
Sultans and all that.
I hear that, yeah,
restaurant that
but
we
there's
went to.
probably a lot
That's what they-
nicer places
that's
where
what
I'm
they
not
like
going to have to bump into Talibans. I don't want to bump
in
into
all
them.
that, bro. Like,
But why would I?
yeah, it's
Like,
just, bro.
I get
It's
why
just
you
enough.
did it. You're vlogging, innit?
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not going there for work. Why would I?
Yeah. No, it makes
You know
sense.
what I'm saying to you?
Everyone's
That-
got their
first of
preferences
all,
where to go.
First of all, let me start here, yeah?
Yeah.
Man's a weed addict.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The man smoke.
What?
The man smoke.
The Taliban take it
But
down.
listen, I don't want to say too much, yeah, but the man were banning.
Yeah.
That's too much.
I smoked with the Taliban. Bro.
He smoked. I don't smoke in it, so obviously, yeah.
I smoked with some of the leaders over there. So there's some stuff.
Dank.
Yeah,
there's-
hashish.
But remember,
That
there's
blew
two
my mind.
Talibans,
Yeah,
right?
remember the two
Remember,
Talibans,
there's
yeah.
two Talibans, right?
That blew my
You weren't
mind.
Smoking with the second batch or the proper batch that
That
don't
blew my
smoke.
mind.
Because if Taliban, they're so savage and that they're supposed to be super on their deen and all that. Yeah, so well, like this sounds like mandem to me. You man just shook. Yeah, run the A, run the A. Let's talk to Taliban. Yo, car. It's just brothers, isn't it?
2 weeks, bro. Come.
Like, bro, we don't fear nobody, bro. Why you fear?
Fear Allah, bro.
Yeah, I don't care
Only
about
person we fear is God, bro. We don't fear no one on this planet. I
Yeah,
think.
I'm
Allah,
supposed to
I'm
make
telling you.
two brethren over there.
It's not about fearing people, yeah. It's about making educated choices, innit? Yeah. It's like you see my grown age. You see back in the day how man used to think, yeah. You see like if there's areas that's a bit warm for man, or there's a rave that we're hearing people might go that we don't like. Man, want to go to this rave. Man, want to go there heavy. Oh yeah. And if they don't come, we want to show that we came. And you know, like see nowadays, I just rather avoid that place.
What rave?
I'd rather avoid that place.
No,
Yeah?
but obviously
You know
for
what I'm
our, this is
Where he said what rave.
our niche, innit? We go
how
to
much
these places
people
where
have
we
wrong
can
perception
uncover
of you,
these
and or
things.
me or
Do you know what I'm
something
saying?
That are totally wrong. Like that's why
Sorry. What did he say? You're a guy, man. What did he say?
No,
He's asked him something. Your answer.
no, it's calm, bro. It's cool. It's cool.
No, but what did you say, bro?
What I'm saying to you is basically, this is our niche. Do you know what I'm saying? So we go to these places that got bad names, bad rep. So we go and uncover what's happening over there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like real life. Because other vloggers can go there, they can show you everything's squishy, everything's calm. But for us, we show you how it is.
But are you just
You know
going
what I'm
to?
trying
No,
to
I
say?
get it. That's why I said I get that you man are going like for work. I get it. But I'm saying I'm not spending my money to go there.
Just
on
going to
holiday.
what
Why?
places?
No, are you just going to Muslim places?
No, I've been
No,
to,
we went
He
to
was
places.
even in Russia.
Did
and
the
all
run
that.
to
I've been
Country,
Russia,
no
I've been
proper.
Colombia, Brazil.
I think we're finally going to get to the video part of the video that I actually wanted to watch, because all of that was just guys just chatting and not really on topic for the State of Deception live, but yeah.
Venezuela,
Japan.
China.
Keep it real, my
Yeah.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the
Obviously.
the place you've been the most uneasy on the racism thing?
Poland.
Russia.
Huh? Poland.
Oh yeah, Poland as well. But yeah, Poland.
Poland's and
Russia's not that racist, but Poland.
Russia racist still.
Whoa.
I thought the racism from the airport.
Hey, Pope,
Yeah, my auntie's Polish, and she literally said to me, I was like, when I was young, I was like, oh, auntie, why didn't I ever come visit Poland with you? She's like, no, you're not going to Poland. No. Because apparently they hate black people. Not hate, but they don't want no black people over there in Poland, apparently.
No way.
Govern, tell your brethren.
But this is why I wouldn't go these places on holiday. You feel what I'm trying to say to you? I've even heard little mad things about certain places in India. I'm not going.
What did you hear about England before you came?
Kazakhstan?
Yeah, I went in Kazakhstan.
All I heard
but we
about
had to,
England is
get
that the normal shit that people hear, tea, crumpets, all of that.
Never heard nothing about racism.
No.
One of the most racist countries in the world. We go everywhere and get people down.
Not really, because you see, even in Europe, like the French speak, like France and Belgium, and that you feel more racism there.
Yeah, UK is not one of the most racist places in the world. No way. I don't think UK is that racist, bro. Like, I don't think USA is that racist either. Like, there's some real, like, if you go to Poland, like, some places in like, there's places in India and stuff. If you go there, they're like, we don't want you here. Like, you know, some other places in Eastern Europe, Southeastern Europe, they don't want you there, man. It'll be open. In the UK, it's not as racist, bro.
Yeah, than you do here. Like here, the racism's kind of hidden. Yeah. Like people, like there, they put in your face. I hear that.
Yeah, for us,
it's shook here, bro.
Okay, there we go. That was a funny little end to State of Deception Live. Thank you everybody for watching. We was live for a good little 3 hours, and we'll stop the stream just in a short moment. I just wanted to give a shout out to everyone. Thank you guys, continue to support. I'm sorry that the Odyssey videos were not available, so we just had to watch some other videos today for the reaction videos. Usually the Odyssey videos would have been available. I actually lined them all up, ready to go. I had like 8 videos, all about NHS and healthcare and stuff like that. We was going to get into it, but we couldn't do it this time. But I'll probably see you guys tomorrow. Share the live and continue to support. Thank you very much. Sayonara and peace. That was a bit of a sea cow there. Auf der Heide blut ein kleines Blümelein. Prometheus says Poland has some of the lowest crime rates. Prometheus, what are you trying to say? You're trying to say the crime rate's low because they don't have people like me there? Is that what you're trying to say, Prometheus? Thanks, Naomi. Alright, I hope you guys continue supporting. Take care. Bye-bye.